Today on Homeworthy, we're discovering the unique charm of homes in Mississippi. First, we'll explore an eclectic yet traditional home in Jackson, where classic design meets bold personality. Next, we'll visit a Bay St. Louis home brimming with Bohemian soul. Finally, we'll tour a colonial home in Oxford, gracefully lined with historic trees, embodying Southern elegance. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Eric, and this is Layla.
And I'm Brennan. Welcome to our home in Mississippi.
Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
I'm Eric Kegler,
And I'm Brennan Hovel.
and welcome to our house in Jackson, Mississippi.
So the house was built in 1952. It was actually one of the first houses built in Northeast Jackson. It's lot number 1. This was a wooded rural area back in 1952.
We were lot number 1. The house was originally built by Betty Love and Jack McClarty. It was actually called the Tulip House and was actually the party house of Northside Drive. And now this is really kind of where it used to be a more rural forested area. Now we're kind of the central part of Jackson, sort of residential area.
And we're actually the second owners of the house. One of the great things about this neighborhood, when we moved in, we were the first people to become second owners in this neighborhood. All of the houses were still owned by the original owners that were adjacent to us, which was kind of cool.
So our house is 4,000 square feet, and it is a ranch. Actually, we bought the house 10 years ago, and there's an interesting story. We actually got an offer on our house, which was down the street, and we immediately were like, we need another home. So we had driven by the house, and Brennan was like, we should go look at that house. It had a for sale sign in the yard, but like it had been sort of sitting vacant for years. So we asked our realtor, she gave us the code to the house, and we snuck into the home, thinking that we had come to an estate sale here, which we had not.
No, we had not. We had never been in this house.
Because it had been vacant for about 4 years. There was a tree that had fallen through one of the back areas of the house.
The entire house was covered in mold. In Mississippi, we have yazoo clay here, which causes the foundations to shift. And there was a 9-inch drop within a 10-foot span in the foundation of the house. So you could really roll a bowling ball down from one side of the house to the other.
But my husband walked in this house, and we came into this room and saw the huge fireplace, which we love. But then as he was walking through the house, Brennan started to tear up, and he said, this house is so full of love. He said, it's amazing. Like, you can feel it in this house. And the truth was,
And
he
Eric
was right.
looked at me like I was insane.
I did.
Because it stunk so bad in here. He's like, how can you feel love in this disaster? But we knew this was a project we wanted to take on.
And we did.
So we talked to our realtor. Our realtor said that there had been multiple offers on the house, and Betty Love, the owner, had rejected all the offers, and she suggested that Eric write her a letter about why we loved the house and what our intention was with the house.
So Betty Love was really terrified that the house was going to get torn down. So I wrote her a letter and kindly told her what Brent and I did for a living. We were designers, and that we really wanted to bring the house back to its original grandeur. So Betty Love invited us to tea, and we had tea with Betty Love and sat, and she actually gave us her party book of all the parties she had thrown in the house with a list of all the guests and how much she spent.
We later learned that the house was like the party house in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Jackson, Mississippi. Charity events were thrown here. It was the hobnob spot in Jackson.
But Betty Love gave us all of that, gave us all the renovation blueprints and everything, and sold us the house. And it was, actually we've met all the children. Betty Love has come to the house.
She loves most of what we've done. She hates the front doors.
Yeah, she did not like the double front doors. That was her one comment. I wasn't hot on but she loved everything else we did. Betty Love also told us that she moved out of the house because her husband had surgery. He could not return to the home, and she looked at Brent and I and she said, "This house was never meant to be lived in alone."
She actually never slept one night alone in this house. The day he was transported to the hospital, she did not sleep in the house that night and never slept here again, which was kind of cool.
So we feel like we have a lineage to carry in the house, and so as we've worked on the house and done our own renovation projects on the house, it has really been always our goal to maintain that original energy that Brennan found in the house and to keep continuing that on as we kind of work on the house, to fill it with love and community and friends, and it has really kind of
the best part of this house is being able to entertain in it. Welcome to our foyer. This is the place where we welcome all of our guests, and we recently had this piece of art commissioned by Rosie Ferguson, who is kind of a friend of the family. It is a portrait of Julie Andrews, but it's more than a portrait of Julie Andrews. It really is one of the things that is most important to us in our lives. We love Broadway shows, we love New York City, and so we asked Rosie to put Julie Andrews in the middle of Times Square with all of the marquees that had all of the different shows that we'd seen and shows that we love, things that are important to us. There's a portrait of our dog Layla that she's right here, that's in the painting. We're in the painting, and all of the relief flowers that she origamied are made from playbills and tickets and shows that we've seen. And if you see the side of the picture, it is all of the tops of the playbill and the theater that the show was at.
What my husband doesn't want to tell you is the reason that it's Julie Andrews and says you are a few of my favorite things is during COVID, when we thought we were going to starve to death, I made him lip sync to favorite things in our store so that we could sell product online. This is what he's not telling you.
And I think it worked. We made it through. These sconces are also something we had commissioned. Tommy Mitchell, who is a metal floral sculptor, made these, and we are completely in love with them. The other thing that's great in this room is this bench that we had designed. Eric designed all the embroidery. It was kind of an influence from another thing that we love, Bergdorf Goodman. We love wandering the top floor of Bergdorf Goodman and just looking at all the home stuff and being inspired, and this bench was an inspiration from there.
The wallpaper in the foyer is from Tebow. It kind of runs through all of our hallways. It was a great way with that burled sort of look to it, but it's actually a vinyl, so it was really cost effective. But it really kind of helped tie everything together and kept the warmth of the house that we found so important. That chair actually belonged to a woman that was supposed to have been on the Titanic.
She was not on the Titanic because their dog was sick, and so she took the next boat, but that, you know.
But I actually got the chair for free from her estate because the family, my mother does estate planning for people, and when they were doing sort of the estate sale, the family, I was sort of buying a few things, and the family was like, I mean, just take the chair, it's fine. Well, later it sort of, they found the receipt for the chair, and it was worth a little pretty penny, so I was very happy to have the chair, actually. So
I think it's the third time we've recovered it.
yeah, we love that chair. The next room we're going to take you in is our lobby, and we actually call it the lobby because when Brent and I were designing it and the pieces of furniture we ordered, we had a friend come over here, and she was like, oh my God, it's like a lobby of a hotel. And so we kind of
So instead of a living room, we call it the lobby.
We call it the lobby.
So join us in the lobby.
So welcome to our lobby. We really worked on designing this room and created it off of an artist that I found actually working on an event. His name is Tommy Pruitt. He actually was diagnosed with early onset dementia. He was a doctor, his wife was an artist, and she actually got him to start drawing and painting to help his dementia stay at bay. So at the event, I just fell in love with his work. And so I bought 10 of the pieces. But really what was sort of special was he has since then passed away, but we have become friends with the wife. So these pieces are really, really special to me and to us. But the room sort of began around those pieces of art, actually, as well as a piece of art that Brendan is in love with.
It's a Jacques Nestle. It was painted in Paris. He supposedly studied with Picasso in the 20s, and it is just one of my very favorite pieces that we own in the house.
We picked the paint color on the walls. It actually is from Backdrop. It's called Suntan. It really kind of helped to warm the space and bring the space together, and it's kind of the nicest golden beige color. It just was a really nice sort of backdrop for everything. I fell in love with the fabric on these chairs. It is from Liberty of London, and I really, when we found the fabric, this fabric, and there's a plaid fabric on the chaise bench, that when we found these two fabrics, they really sort of set the room and kind of set the whole tone for the fabrics in the room, which I love a textile. So that was kind of really important as we were sort of working on everything. Yeah, this is sort of like, I love amazing artists. It's kind of, and so there's actually, we call it the goiter. It actually is a Rhode Island designer that hand blows glass that I just fell in love with this piece. It was just so amazing and her work was so beautiful. And this sculpture is actually an Asian artist that we found when we were in Paris. And again, like it was just sort of, I love the aesthetic of it. Coming from my background in dance, the curves and everything were really important. The bowls were actually, we found on our honeymoon.
They're actually made from like a volcanic ash that they turn into this clay and create these bowls out of. The pièce de résistance on the center of the table is actually from Home Goods. Don't tell anybody, but they are from Home Goods.
Yeah, it is true. The piece over here is actually from the outside of someone's mausoleum. It was a collected piece that I actually found at a junk shop, but I just sort of fell in love with it. And the column base that's underneath it was a piece that I got off of an estate sale that I just sort of, again, thought it was really kind of fascinating. And we have used it all over, and I end up with people that want it, but I just can't get rid of it because I just think it's so beautifully done and it's kind of amazing.
Our favorite spot in this room is our puzzle table. We love doing Liberty puzzles, which is a wood puzzle. And when we designed this room, we really wanted to create this space that gave us the opportunity to hang out and do puzzles. It's one of the other great things that came out of COVID. We realized that we love doing a puzzle.
Well, we have a fire today because it really froze yesterday. We generally do not use our fireplaces all that often. So, but it does work. It actually is the original fireplace to the house with the original stone. This was one of the things that we did not change. We did not really change any aspect of the front of the entire house. We redid a little bit of work in the foyer and closed off a closet, but really we kept this entire space very quintessential to the original aspects of this house. We changed a little of the molding detail on the windows and the doors, and did a little work. When we get to the family room, we did a little work in that area as far as just closets, but really this whole area of the house was really maintained from the original. So the mirror is actually, my mother works with estate planning and older people on their estates. And so what ends up happening in our life is I feel like Brennan and I are now the collectors of all of the things that our families are like, I have this incredible mirror and I don't know what to do with it anymore. And they're like, do you want it? So this was one of those moments of my mother saying like, I don't have a place for this, but I don't want it to get damaged. So it really kind of houses a beautiful space like on our mantle, and has amazing, like all of the carving up top and everything is beautiful. So I'm happy to be a little storage unit for some members of our family. And the food dogs were, I think they were just something we found. Brent and I have a large love of like Asian things and sort of collectibles like bronze. There's a set of bronze like collectibles that are from Thailand and Vietnam over here that we sort of love. So I think this was kind of just some of the things that we found like through some of our travels and as we were sort of going through. This bowl is actually from California and was a California artist that sort of created the bowl, but I actually thought the set of it looked sort of like congruous all together, which was really, really nice.
We don't necessarily know the lineage of everything in the house. We just know that we like it.
Yeah, it kind of is how we buy things, is that the love of the thing is kind of important. And really like the love of like a great artist or somebody interesting that we find. So some of the pieces have stories around them of friends that we've collected from or artists that we've met and become friends with. And other things just are really that we found them and just kind of fell in love with the way they looked. And this room kind of reflects my love of beautiful upholstery. I love to kind of put a detail on a skirt and a detail on a chair. That kind of was really important as we were working on the space to kind of really work on the details of kind of how everything kind of came together. But again, also reflected a little bit, like I don't like things to feel like you can't go and sit in our house. So that was kind of really important to us. That was our lobby. The next place we're going to move on to is our dining room.
So you want the real story, or do you want the story we used to tell people?
So Brennan and I met. In working in design, have worked all over the country, and I was working in Dayton, Ohio. Brent and I actually met.
And I'm from Dayton, Ohio.
Brent and I met actually on a hookup site.
Grindr, to be specific. A little plug for Grindr.
But Brent and I met and immediately sort of had a connection, and just kind of our relationship developed very quickly. And honestly, we met in August, and by October, Brennan had moved here, and
a little crazy.
It was a little nuts, but I had the design business, but we have grown it since then and opened the store and done everything sort of together. It was just kind of one of those things that was sort of kismet. But what's really interesting is in my first career, I was a ballet dancer, and I danced in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Brennan and I lived 3 blocks from each other in Cincinnati.
Thank God we didn't meet till we were in our 40s, because we would have surely screwed it up if we'd met in our 20s.
Exactly. So we met later in life, but the truth is, through our lives, we have had clients that were friends with each other in Dayton. It's a very weird connection that we have had for most of our life, but really just sort of met 12 years ago and got married 10 years ago, and got married and renovated this house, bought the house and renovated it all at the same time.
Actually, within weeks of getting married, buying the house, starting the renovations. It was all the things they say you're not supposed to do. Buy a new car, get married, buy a new house. We did
all of those things. It was ridiculous.
Welcome to our dining room. This room houses some of our favorite things.
Some of your favorite
Some of my favorite things. Okay, some of my favorite things for sure. I'm an avid collector of blue and white. This wall houses a great collection of some of the platters and teapots and cash pots that I've collected over the years. And Eric is a whiz at hanging collections of things on the wall. I think that's why I married him, actually, because I had all these collections. I needed someone to help me put them together.
Oh my God, I was waiting to know the reason. But it was important to us that, sometimes when you're hanging platters and stuff, it was really important for me not to let things get flat. Sometimes it gets to be really flat. So I found these ledges and all these pieces of acrylic to sort of help create the collection. So it ended up having more depth to it and a little more interest, so that you could see all the different pieces, and it gave it some texture and interest off of this wallpaper, which we kind of are obsessed with.
We fell in love with this wallpaper. We were randomly walking down the street in Paris, and walked past the Pierre Frey showroom, and this wallpaper was hanging in the front window of the showroom, and stopped dead in my tracks. And I was like, we have got to go in and check this out. It's actually a mural. And when we first saw it, it was not quite available in the United States yet. So we had to wait a little bit for it to be available in the United States. And we love it on these walls.
It really, you know, sets a great tone in our dining room. It really kind of is the hub of our house. I meditate in here every morning, and it is just the nicest space to actually like sit in and enjoy. It's so comforting, and we love having friends over for dinner, and it just creates the most just serene environment to sort of enjoy. And we love dishware. That would be my sort of first love, is like dishes. So it also really kind of like helped with the mural to kind of bring all this together, that we can do different selections of dishes on the table. And we did this glass top table, which I actually found this table at a Palm Beach sort of consignment store and fell in love with it. It is custom iron wheat stalks, and I packed this in the van that I was driving at the time and drove it back from South Florida so that I could have this dining room table. And it has followed us through several houses just because I love this table. And we designed the chairs in these manual canvas velvet to kind of reflect
This chair is a perfect example of just creating detail with the fabrics. This loose stripe on the back and the loose back cushion with the cording is just a really interesting way to apply these two fabrics. I don't necessarily call a dining room chair sexy, but I think these dining room chairs are probably the sexiest thing in our house.
Besides me? My chop liver? What do we got going on here?
I don't know. These chairs are pretty good.
So the rug is actually from a company called Jaipur.
It's a brand new rug.
It is actually brand new, but it was kind of the find of the century. That it, you know, there's always a color story when you're working on a house, like the story that kind of moves you through. And I would have never told you that the color story we ended up with was the color that finds its way through our whole house is a strange sort of tealish green color. But like bringing this rug in and the dining room chairs actually started bringing the whole house together in a way. Because this was not one of the first rooms we worked on in the house. And so it kind of was interesting as we got to sort of a point in the journey, we were like, this color really sets the tone, and this rug really brings all the colors of our house together in it, which was really kind of a happy accident. We could not do a house tour without pretty flowers. That just is sort of the quintessential thing about us in our home, is we like to entertain and bring people over. The candlesticks are actually, I have a client that likes to give things away, to be honest with you, and so she gives clothes away, and she was giving
Fendi bags.
Fendi bags.
Our employees get free Fendi bags, and you know, it's.
So in all honesty, these candlesticks were a moment that we were in a cabin, and she was like, just get rid of those. And I was like, can I have them? And so really they were kind of, you know, I feel like they were sort of, and they're amazing. I mean, the blue in them and the crystals are incredible. And so, yeah, they were free.
Nothing wrong with free.
There's nothing wrong with free. So as we go into the next room, which is our family room, we will expose our dish closet, which is, so there's.
We have a horrible addiction to dishes and china, and our friends always give us a hard time because if we have them over for burgers, the table is completely set with salad plates, chargers, dessert plates, crystal, glassware, the whole 9 yards. We love the full presentation.
Yeah, the two cabinets that are actually in the lobby actually house all of our napkins, napkin rings, like all the candles, like everything are kind of hidden away in there and kind of organized. So it is, we love to set a table. And one of the only reasons I did not set it today is just because I love how the table looks and it was going to cover it up.
The house is very keeping with the architectural style of the house, which is very traditional. But we try to infuse some modern, more updated, traditional into that traditional design. I am much more traditional than Eric.
I was about to say, like, you are
Eric
very...
would funk it up more than I would, but
So it is really a combination of the two of us. I will really say that Brennan and I will agree that I find that it's nice to embrace the architecture of a home, but my husband is much more traditional. I am much more eclectic and a little funky. So this house is a real combination of the two of us with a little more of the traditional aspects, but some definite eclecticism and things like that thrown in there just for good measure to kind of spice it up a little bit. So y'all, welcome to our family room. Also kind of in Mississippi, we call it a keeping room. So we were kind of talking in the dining room about our setting of the table. So originally when we got the house, there was a closet on this side with sort of those old-fashioned partition doors on it. And so Brent and I revamped this closet to actually be our dish closet, and we had it all lined in felt. But I will tell you, love a dish. So when Brennan and I actually got married, we had 89 guests at our wedding, and we served everybody on china. That was kind of our goal. So we bought china through the years. My favorite set is sort of this set of Haviland china that comes in like 3 different colors. It's all hand painted. It is like one of my favorite sets that we own, actually. I use it all the time. But one of the things this is one of our most recent purchases, is this Motorhead set that is got the most beautiful colors. It looks amazing on our dining room table. We love sort of seeing it there. And collections of chargers, like we have sort of over the years collected the chargers that sort of go with this setup. And we have kind of partitioned it in between, as you can sort of see, with all of these little foam pieces to kind of keep everything a little protected in here, but beautiful. This actually is the dishware that came from that entire set that I bought for Brennan, which is just beautiful. But on top of that, we have just pretty stuff that we really like. So, I mean, again, there's everything from high-end to sort of basic everyday dishes, but we just love to set a beautiful table. So this was a great way for us to kind of create this and design these beautiful, like, heart of pine doors that sort of create this sort of herringbone pattern on them. And we actually designed the bar doors to actually match those. And so in the house, when we bought the house, because we told you it was the party house on Northside Drive, there were 5 bars in this house and outside.
a bar in this room, a bar in the master bedroom, a bar in the kitchen, a bar outside.
And there was one more bar in the gazebo.
Yeah.
So we actually sort of funneled it down to 1 bar, but we actually designed all of this with all of our glassware and everything inside of it, and really kind of designed the interior drawers to kind of hide all of our napkins are in this side and glasses, but we love beautiful glassware as well. So that was kind of where we stored it all. And these are actually napkins that we still have from our wedding, because if anybody needs a tip, like, don't over-order your napkins for your wedding. You'll have them forever. And don't put the date on them either. But this is also kind of where we put our pictures of Layla that we love. So this houses a lot of things we love. Alcohol and our dog.
So I'm a vodka drinker. So I am vodka, soda, grapefruit juice pretty much all the time. Eric is the adventurous one.
I'm a little more adventurous. Right now I'm sort of a tequila person. I'm always a champagne person. Champagne is my go-to. But right now I'm sort of having a little tequila moment. But I've just moved off from a gin moment. So, wow, I sound like a booze hound.
His favorite cocktail is a cocktail called The Last Word, which you can probably realize Eric's always going to get the last word in, but it is gin, chartreuse, champagne, and
Luxardo.
Yeah. And so it's liquor.
This actually is a nice backdrop for the rest of our family room, which really is the place that we hang out. The TV's in here. I think we bought the house because of this massive fireplace that I make.
For sure.
But it really kind of developed, again, you know, it's kind of like the lobby. We sort of developed this room to have a great deal of seating in it. this tends to be the room that our friends kind of come to and we hover in and hang out in.
This was actually the first room that we decorated or did anything with. While the rest of the house was under construction, this room was visqueened off because it was the only spot that there wasn't drywall dust and construction workers and just absolute disaster. It was the only place that we could come. So this was the first room that we did in the house. And the sofa fabric was really the jumping off point for this room.
It's a GP&J Baker fabric. It was a beautiful floral that I fell in love with. And as Brennan told you, I love a fabric.
And so does Layla, obviously.
And so does Layla. She is in her happy moment laying in here in the heat. But everything kind of developed off of this couch. And we actually created this couch to be a really good, like, watching TV couch, as well as this chair, which is sort of the chair I hang out and watch TV in all the time, which I love a little leopard print, and this leopard velvet, it was kind of one of my favorites.
It's tiger.
It's tiger.
Like I said, we just buy what we like. We don't know what it is.
The color on the walls in here is actually painted in homage of my husband's love of blue and white. I told him that I would not have a house that was all blue, but we did paint this room Hague blue from Farrow and Ball, which is really one of my favorite colors, and it really does sort of richen the space.
It's also one of our favorite paints. It is, Farrow and Ball paint is really, the flat Farrow and Ball paint creates a great depth when you use a dark color, so.
Yeah, it is true. But the fabrics in here just kind of got developed over just time. Like, really, we sort of found things as we were sort of going. We kind of created a little pocket of furniture, and then we kind of just kept developing, layering. And some of the fabrics in here are antique. Like, there's actually an antique textile that was sort of like from the 1800s that is sort of like a cut hand-stitched velvet. And there's like a crazy quilt over there that I found in an antique store and just kind of fell in love with it. My grandmother was actually a quilter in Wisconsin, so I think on some level I just love the handwork of all of that. I think it's kind of amazing.
This room actually houses probably some of our best blue and white in the cabinets on either side of the fireplace, and then kind of scattered, you saw around in the bar. But some of our best pieces are in this room and kind of also helped to develop the original design of this room. So this room was part of the very first renovation that they did on the house. This house, prior to us owning it, had been through 3 different renovations. And this room was actually the garage. And they put these brick floors down. And I think this renovation was done sometime in the mid-70s. We don't know that for sure, but they did put the brick floor down at that time. I don't know if you noticed when we came into this room, you had to step down into this room. When we first looked at this house, you didn't have to step down to get into this room. But we had to jack the foundation up to make the house as level as possible, which created a step down into this room. This is the only portion of the house that is on a slab. The rest of the house is on what they call a conventional foundation, so we have a crawl space under the rest of the house.
I will tell you a cute story in the fact that Brennan and I, on one of our first dates, actually each bought one of those skulls that are on the fireplace. And this was pre-realizing that we were going to get married or do anything. So, like, those skulls were each in our separate spaces until we sort of got together. So that is probably one of our, like...
For 3.5 days until we, decided to join the skulls together.
It was a very short-lived, short-lived romance before it became like, oh, we're moving in together. But, I think all of the objects in here, there's just some great stuff and great blue and whites. Like, this is a piece that I found in Alaska that's like a fossil bone. Really, like, was just something cool that I found and sort of fell in love with. But each of the things, I mean, some of it is, like, there are pieces that my mother has brought for us from her travels. My mother is an avid traveler, so some of it comes with that. And a lot of it is just books we love and art that we love in this room. The pieces that are on the fireplace that are above the fireplace were actually 3 pieces that Brent and I originally found in Paris at an art flea market that we sort of fell in love with. So probably of any of the things in here, those are kind of our most special things, or the things that we sort of have collected together and have found together on trips. So the copper actually that we purchased, like we kind of have a huge collection of antique copper, both that we hide away in the kitchen drawers that we cook with, but this was sort of an extension of that we sort of bought like through the years and actually have been gifted as Christmas presents, like from our families.
The collection actually started with one. I had this idea when we first moved into the house. The fireplace is so big, and there were these original wrought iron swing arm things that were in the fireplace, and I thought, oh, let's get a big copper pot, and we will put water and potpourri in there, and the whole house will smell amazing. While this fireplace produces a lot of heat, it's so big that I couldn't even get the water to boil to create any scent. So then it just became decorative.
In a room this size, to sort of create the seating arrangements that we created, I think some of the ideas that we used that were really helpful to kind of bring the space together and divide it apart a little bit was we kind of layered rugs on top of each other that helped give each space some identity while starting to then also bring them all kind of together. So I think the overlapping of the rugs and things really helped to kind of give some definition. And then we kind of decided to layer the furniture on top of it. I think some of the misconception of what people do when they're decorating in a larger space is trying to like create one seating area that houses everything.
People oftentimes think that, you know, all the furniture needs to face the TV, or all the furniture needs to be focused around the fireplace. And we don't necessarily believe that that's true. If you create conversation areas and multiple conversation areas inside of a room, it allows you to enjoy the TV, enjoy the fireplace, and create areas that you can gather with your friends and family.
We have 8 seats at our dining table, and so I think it was also really important for us to create an environment that you could seat the 8 guests that were having dinner with you like in a room together. So one of the things in both the lobby and this room that were important was creating an environment that housed that many seats so that really it was always comfortable for us to like have guests that could move to different spaces was also one of the things that we always really wanted as we were working on a room.
So this was our family room. So please follow us into the kitchen. So we're both interior designers and we work together, and it becomes a fairly easy balance. There's certain things that are really important to me, and there's certain things that are really important to Eric. And I think that we somehow, I don't even know how this happens, but we somehow allow the other person's personality and creativity to come through. Eric loves a pattern. Eric loves a crazy upholstery. And I have come to embrace it. Like he does things I would have never thought to do with fabric and trim and upholstery details.
And I will really say, I think, and I will say, this is over 12 years of a relationship. So to be clear, like this was not,
it wasn't always that
not
easy.
always this easy. But I do think that we've really come to a place where, like, if Brennan really vetoes something, like, I'm clear, like, this is not going to happen. And I think there are things that we both find important. And I think we have grown in our marriage to really find a way to listen to each other and to compromise the things with each other. And so I think it's really created a really healthy environment of how we create in the house. I will say also, my husband is an incredible gardener and does amazing yard work. And if Jackson hadn't frozen over 2 days ago, you would probably see more of our lovely yard. So we've also sort of made it that, like, I will work on a lot of the interior of the house and he will kind of like come and edit and give his opinion. And outside, we kind of do the same thing. It's like we kind of balance our relationship out to give each other some primary like skills of like decorating and design.
Which is perfect because Eric doesn't do outside.
I do not. I don't like outside. It's hot here, except for today when it's below freezing.
Yes. Welcome to our kitchen. This was probably one of the biggest renovation projects that we took on in this house. It was originally 2 rooms. The kitchen stopped it was in this area, and the kitchen stopped about right here. There was one small octagon-shaped plant window in the kitchen, and this part of the room was an old 1950s knotty pine family room. We knocked the entire back wall of the house off, had floor-to-ceiling windows put in, and did this 17-foot-long island. One of the things that was kind of inspiring about creating this space was we found these antique lanterns, lights that were from an old ship. We found those in North Carolina. Completely fell in love with those and knew that they had to go in this space.
And the other thing that really inspired us was the fact that you could not really see the beauty of our backyard in the original design of this kitchen. And really, I wanted to make sure, because I do most of the cooking in our life, I wanted to make sure that we could develop a space that really allowed me to sort of see the exterior and really view the backyard and enjoy sort of the experience of getting to cook and work and do things here while getting to sort of see what Brennan has worked so hard on in our backyard, which is really important.
If you notice, this room is very white and bright and light, and the rest of the house has a lot more color in it, and we really wanted this room to be an extension of the outside. So we wanted to allow the openness of the windows to all just kind of bring the outside in, and we didn't want a whole lot of distraction with dark, heavy colors that we've got in other parts of the house.
We did, however, kind of want to layer and create the same texture, so we used actually 2 Philip Jeffrey wall coverings. We did one that's a wood veneer and silver on the ceiling that really kind of helped to develop the space. We actually have low ceilings in this house, and we've done a few ceiling details to actually create more height. And then we actually used a grass cloth on the walls that really kind of, again, helped to give a little bit of texture and interest, because neither Brennan nor I are totally white kitchen people. So this was a great way to kind of develop that. The light fixtures really helped us work off of the hardware too, which we two-toned the metal on the hardware to kind of work off the light fixtures, and also did this kind of more contemporary stainless steel backsplash sort of over the cooktop that kind of really all kind of helped to bring the space together. But one of the things that really became important as we were working on our kitchen was we each kind of wanted certain things. Brennan really wanted a workstation sink, which we really do love. This is a Kraus sink, and it is kind of one of the most ideal things that we have brought into the kitchen, just in terms of throwing a dinner party and keeping things sort of hidden and tucked away.
It's so functional. Whenever we work with clients and we're renovating a kitchen, since we've lived with this sink, we highly recommend a big, deep workstation kitchen, because you can hide all kinds of dishes in there when you have company.
And I actually wanted the French door ovens, which was sort of my thing, because I just loved how they looked. But I will also say that what I never realized was how ergonomic it was to be able to open the doors, and thank God it's clean.
Cleanish.
And not have to lean over to actually go into there. It really was kind of one of those things that I was like, I love it, but I love it even more now that it's sort of been done. One of the things that we really did do as we were working on the kitchen was we did the island because we also knew that, like, you know, whenever you have people over, they want to hang out with you. So we kind of created this space with the floor-to-ceiling windows so that we would also have a place for guests to sit and enjoy themselves, but also to sort of work off of giving Brennan and I sort of a small breakfast area for us to enjoy ourselves. And we actually took the knotty pine that was from the den area and stripped it and actually created sort of our pantry and our TV area. And this houses, like, I love hot tea, and this houses all of Layla's treats and things. But it gave us a really nice space, and also kind of, again, like, took a part of the history of the home and adapted it for a space that was kind of important to us. And upholstered the doors in this great Nina Campbell fabric with this Samuel & Sons trim that kind of made a little interest and brought a little of that tealish green element that we had sort of found was like the story of our house into here to kind of give it a little bit of a burst of color without being too distracting from the outside. The chair fabric we initially found is an Osborne & Little fabric that we fell in love with and had a ton of color in it. We actually ended up that this antique bamboo table has sort of moved around our house all over the place into like guest rooms and things. And it really ended in the fact that one day we were sort of sitting here and we were like, why aren't we bringing this into our breakfast room? And it is just the most functional table, but at the same time really brings that sort of warmth in. It developed into the bar stools, which were also sort of a bamboo, and it kind of gave a little bit of a casual feel to this.
But it also helps to follow that same idea of bringing the outside in with a little more natural elements, and just gives it a little bit of warmth inside of all of the bright and the white.
And our kitchen is kind of narrow, so one of the things it also did was it allowed us to bring the 2 chairs in, and we actually have 2 stools that we kind of prop our feet on, but sometimes when we have friends over, they'll kind of pop on the stool and we'll all kind of hang out and eat a little dinner. So it's also kind of a nice way that we got 4 seats in here without it feeling overcrowded in this space. We would love to show you a few of our bedrooms next, so if you'll follow us down the hall, we will take you there.
I became an interior designer by accident. My house was on a Christmas tour. I lived in a historic district in Dayton, Ohio, and the owner of one of the big design firms in Dayton came through the house and offered me a job. And I told him I had no experience, and he said he would train me and teach me. And the second I went to work for him, I knew that this was where I was supposed to be, and have done design work ever since.
And for me, I started dancing when I was about 8 years old. I went to college and did my career as a classical ballet dancer. As I was retiring in my late 20s, I needed some direction, and I really loved textiles when I was a kid and enjoyed all that. My mom actually dabbled in design work, and so I actually decided to go back to school and study design. And I got out of school and went to work for a firm on Palm Beach, and really loved the process of doing all of it. I just loved every bit of being a designer. And so when I had a partner at the time, he got a job in Jackson, and I decided to come here because my roots were Southern. And while he and I did not work out, I really enjoyed it here, and the Southern aesthetic and the design pull is so strong here with the community here. It really just has always captured me to sort of stay here and develop the relationships that we have with our clients here. So it's kind of how I ended up 25 years ago moving to Jackson, but we love it here.
And I met this one and moved to Jackson, not realizing that I think I was actually really born a Southerner, but didn't identify as a Southerner until I actually got here. Completely love it. It's such a great spot. When we tell people we're from Mississippi when we're traveling in other parts of the country, they just kind of look at us funny, but it is such a great spot and such an incredible community of people. Welcome to what we call our girls' bedroom. We have a girls' bedroom and a boys' bedroom.
I'm not sure how this history happened, but we have always in our houses had a girls' guest bedroom and a boys' guest bedroom, so here we are. This room, my favorite color is orange, and so this room really got developed over my love of orange, and I found this Clark & Clark wallpaper that is this geometric botanical with butterflies and snakes and
dragonflies.
It is kind of incredible, and it had a matching velvet to it, which I kind of loved. So this room kind of got inspired from that, and then I found the Andrew Martin glossy tangerine wallpaper for the ceiling, and that was kind of like the starting point for this entire space. Strangely enough, this is a piece from my childhood. It is an Ethan Allen secretary, and I had it faux finished ages ago in this sort of like orange color with a little bit of antiquing done to it. And so it kind of worked perfectly bringing in the bedroom. The coloration worked great for bringing in our extra like dining room chair in here. So that's kind of been a really nice way to use our furniture so that we don't have just random furniture sitting around our house.
Guest rooms are always a great place to kind of house those extra dining chairs that you don't really have room for in your dining room.
The bedding really got created to kind of really give a backdrop to the wallpaper. So we found a great ticking that kind of developed the bed and just little pockets of color, but didn't want to be too distracting as you sort of came in the room from all of the different things in here and from the bed itself.
And the bed is probably one of the more interesting pieces in the room. This was actually one of the very first pieces of furniture that Ralph Lauren designed. And being a traditionalist, Ralph Lauren is kind of one of my big design inspirations. It's got a little wear and tear on it, but Eric fell in love with it in an auction and kept bidding and bidding and bidding and bidding. So it's going to be in our house forever.
Yeah, you know that moment in an auction where somebody's bidding against you and you're just like, but I want it, but I want it. But I kind of hit that moment, not really paying attention to like how much I was wanting it, but it was worth it.
It was worth it.
But love the bed, and it's kind of an amazing piece, and really do love the story behind it because we both sort of have an affection for Ralph Lauren and the design aesthetic that comes with Ralph Lauren. So that was kind of a nice...
It's nice to own that little piece of that history.
Yeah. I think when you're working with color, and while we work on lots of different levels with lots of different clients and clients that want a more neutral palette and clients that are more colorful, I always think it's about the strength of color that you're sort of using and keeping it managed in the strength. So like really when I was working on this room, what was so great about the wallpaper was the deep navy blue in the wallpaper actually gave a huge rich tone that kind of balanced sort of that richer sort of very like bold color orange that we picked for in here. So I think a lot of times as you're working on rooms, it's really about the balance you take of the color scheme you're making. I think it's very easy to bring color into a room as long as you're keeping everything at the right levels together so that everything kind of reads as like it's all a 5. I think it actually kind of allows you to mix and play a little more in that color. But I will also say that I think so much of it is about using colors that you love and that you look good in as well. So I think so much of like our design aesthetic comes from like, you know, your color tones and how you look in a room becomes very important to like what you should put in your own home. You know, it's like there are colors that we love, but I don't necessarily, neither of us look very good in. So I think it is the choice you make around how you place color in your home appropriately as well.
So all of our bedrooms have their own ensuite. It was one of the things that when we started the renovation of the house, we wanted to make sure that each bedroom had its own private bath, which is great for our guests and great for company. So the bathroom in this bedroom was probably one of the biggest disasters during the renovation. The contractor fell completely through the floor into the crawl space. And one of his guys came running up to us like, oh my gosh, we have a huge problem. So just the perils of renovation. But out of that came this great space.
That we kind of did a little more of a traditional sort of like clawfoot bathtub that, again, we drove back from a trip to Ohio and found in sort of an antique shop, but really developed it to sort of have a little feel of a continuation of this bedroom. We did an Andrew Martin grass cloth on the walls and the ceiling to kind of create some continuity, and then really did this Samuel & Sons grosgrain trim to kind of help define the space and cover up actually some of the mechanics of using a grass cloth and cutting it at the ceiling and the wall space. The painting on the wall is actually really special to me. When I danced, I was actually the first male Peter Pan to have the ballet created for me. And that piece was actually by the artist that created the backdrop of when Peter Pan takes the children to Never Never Land. This was one of the schematics that came across the back wall as we were flying. So he gave it to me as we were sort of creating the ballet, and it is got a very special place in my heart, very much so. And we really in this bathroom wanted to do something a little more interesting than sconces on the wall. So we found these great Ralph Lauren fixtures that we found these floating shelves that we kind of put them on to just create a little more interest in here and something kind of special.
And this is another example of how we kind of love to mix metals. The silver lamps with the gold mirror, the silver hardware on the sink, gold hardware on the chest. We think if done well, you can absolutely mix metals. I think people are oftentimes afraid of it, but we've done it in here, we did it in our kitchen, and I just think it kind of gives a layered, eclectic feel. I think the thing that gives a home a soul is the people that you invite inside. I think that the soul of the home comes from the friends and the family and the connections and the memories that are made in the house. It has nothing to do with the lamps or the art or the rug or any of those things. It's about the memories that you share with the people you love in the house.
I agree. I think the soul of a home comes from what you put in it. And I don't mean like the furnishings. I mean, I think so much of what you create is the flow of how energy works in a home so that your family grows and your happiness grows and that your community grows there. I think it becomes what is so important. And I think it is, even in our own home, what was so important was that initial moment that Brennan was so moved by the energy in this house that I think it's the thing you capture and that you build on. And I think so much of that has to do with the people that are there and the people that you invite into your life. So on the way to the primary is our powder bathroom, which was actually originally a laundry room. But we found this crazy paper from a company called Mind the Gap and just fell in love with it because it actually went with these upholstered deer mounts that are hanging above the toilet, which I was a little obsessed with. So we created this space to kind of be a little bit of a quirky sort of room. The antique tile behind the mirror helps to create some depth, as does the made goods mirror. And I actually found the sink, which is petrified wood, on eBay as we were working on the house. So this was kind of one of my little like inexpensive finds. And actually the soap dish is from an old carriage. It used to be sort of where they put the lanterns in the antique carriages at the time. So it was kind of just a little quirky little thing along the way to our primary bedroom. So y'all come on in.
Welcome to our primary bedroom.
This space really reflects a little of what we were doing when we worked on the kitchen. We have a great view of our backyard out of the windows here. So we really wanted to develop a space that was both sort of restful for both of us and a continuation of the outdoors. So the greens and the soft grays were really important for us to sort of develop in this room to kind of create a nice warm palette in here.
And like probably most of what we do with our clients and most of what we've done in our house is we find a fabric that is kind of our jumping off point.
Yes.
Like the fabric on the sofa in the family room. The fabric that kind of inspired this room was the fabric that is on the chair and on the window treatments in this room. It was
Lee Joffa.
Yeah, we fell in love with it, and it became the jumping off point for the entire room.
And so in working on it, we kind of developed both, again, like how to soften everything to keep it so that all the fabric showed off, and also to create a little texture in here. So we found this beautiful plaid carpet that we fell in love with that really kind of has that gray tone to it. And it really kind of helped bring all of our furniture together as we were kind of working on it. This sofa is my favorite story. I bought this sofa for $75 at the Salvation Army and had...
Not in this fabric.
No, it's been upholstered several times through the years. But I had our upholsterer, who's amazing, cut the notch in it because Layla likes to get up on the bed. So this was a way for her to get up on the bed easier. And covered it in this great cravat fabric with this great Samuel & Sons bullion trim that is just kind of puddling all over the floor, which I love.
This room has a lot of different patterns of fabric in it, which I think normally is a challenge for people. But I think one of the ways to be able to introduce multiple patterns of fabric into one room is how you repeat them through the room. So we've taken, like, the edge trim on this chair is the same fabric that's on the pillows on the bed.
The bed fabric is actually on the skirt of this piece over here, which actually hides all of our gym clothes, and our t-shirts are all folded up underneath this. So that's kind of a nice little trick if you need extra storage, because our closet in this house is not exactly humongous. So, and it also just kind of, we created the top for this piece. It brought the fabric, the floral over here. It really is about how you balance the pattern so that it kind of keeps the story going as you're walking through the house. It also really helped Brennan and I to kind of show off pieces that basically came from both of our histories together. These are pictures of me when I was younger and dancing. A piece we picked up on the street in New York. Some black and whites that Brennan had when, like, from his younger days in design. Strangely enough, this piece of art is one of our favorites because it is actually taken by one of my clients.
Eric's very first client.
My very first client took this photo, and Brennan bought it at an auction.
At an auction, at a charity auction. I bought that photo probably 5 years before we met, 5 or 6 years before we actually met or even knew anything about each other. So it's just happy coincidence.
But this we actually found, there's a great company in Birmingham, Alabama that actually sells both concrete pieces that are new, but this was sort of a student done antique piece that they had found in Europe. And so we had bought this, and I just kind of love the curves and the shape of it. Looks amazing with these lamps from Visual Comfort. And again, the shades sort of pair perfectly with it, which kind of made me really happy. I love walking in this room and sort of seeing this. It just sort of settles me, makes me really thrilled. And it also then moves really well into Brendan's
Another
collection.
one of my collections is the finials that are on this mantle. These are all either stair parts or old finials from the ends of drapery rods. And I've collected these just randomly over the years. They're, you know, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there, but they make a great little collection.
And it really, so this is a hickory chair bed that as we kind of worked on the bedding, like, honestly, Brent and I like to keep things, as much as we love a layered bed, it's also important to keep things simple just so that the structure of the bed actually shows off. So we did a little T-bow trim, but kept everything really, again, like, pulled together some of the fabrics of the room so that this just became a participant and didn't become the lone structure in this room, which is really a large master bedroom. So we wanted to make sure that everything kind of worked to keep the room feeling sizable. One of my favorite pieces actually is this piece of art that is an Ellen Langford piece. She's a Mississippi-based artist. When I was first working in design in Mississippi, she and I shared studio space for like the first like 6 or 7 years. And she and I traded off, and she made me this piece, and I call it Das Boot, but it just is one of the most restful and peaceful things. I love waking up to this every day. It is just one of my favorite pieces of art in our home. Home is this person. This person is my home.
You're not supposed to cry on this. You're not supposed to make me cry on this.
But it's true. I mean, for all of this, and I love our house, and for everything I tell you about safety and everything else, like, I love this person very much, and this is what creates my home, is our marriage and how hard we've worked on it, and that has really created both the enjoyment and the beauty of all of this. It really is what my home is.
I 100% agree.
I'm Valerie Hart. Do you think I'm worthy, homeworthy? Well, come on in. I have Bohemian soul. Here we are in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Valerie Hart. We're here in my home in Bay St. Louis that I share with my sweetheart and my partner Dave and my dog Lily and my kitty cat named Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. Presently, my latest project is author of a book called Bohemian Soul, published by Rizzoli. I've had many careers and interests, and you're going to hear about them today. This house is one of the few old historic properties left after all the hurricanes. The most important one, of course, was Hurricane Katrina. Bay St. Louis was basically ground zero for that hurricane. So I found this town a few years ago when I had an interior design client who wanted me to zhuzh up their house here. It was a second home. And they did not like coming here in the summer because it was so hot. So basically I lived in their house for the summer with my sweetheart Dave, and we liked this little town and thought maybe we would buy a second home here. Gradually, we started to talk about leaving New Orleans, selling our houses, and buying a house together here in Bay St. Louis. Taxes were going crazy, insurance, potholes, crime. We just had enough of New Orleans. We still love it. It was hard for us to leave. Dave had been there almost 40 years, and I had been there 20 years, happiest years of my life. So we started the search for this house, and we had looked probably for over a year, and we had a lovely agent who would send us listings, every week. And we came out to look at another house, and it wasn't for us. And she says, wait a minute, there's one that just came on the market. Maybe you'd be interested in it, but it's right next to the train track. Do you have a problem with that? And we said, no, let's go look at it. And the minute we saw this house, we knew that it was the one. Dave had been a contractor in New Orleans restoring old houses for nearly 40 years. So we both wanted an old house, and this one is smaller than both of our houses, and we knew we'd have to do some downsizing, and it needed love, it needed fixing up. There wasn't a lick of paint on it, it didn't have HVAC, but the bones were good, and we have kept everything probably intact. The whole house is made of beaded board, not a bit of sheetrock in this house. And it was probably built between 1870 and 1890, and it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And it's just cute. It has a little center hall, and I said I would never move again unless I moved to a center hall house. And here it is, my wish, even though it's kind of a small center hall. But anyway, that's our story. Here we are in the center hall of this house. Now, you would think that a center hall would be very grand in the tradition of Southern homes. This one is small. It's tiny, but it's still a center hall. And what a center hall means is that there are rooms off of it. There's 2 bedrooms, there's a living room, and behind is the kitchen that almost gives you like the feeling of a shotgun house, because you can see from the front door all the way to the back door. So this center hall, I was so excited to get to a house that has a center hall. I always wanted one, and I had great plans. I was going to have a settee, I was going to have a center hall table in the middle, but not so fast. It's a lot smaller than I realized when I saw the house empty. But what we've done in the center hall is we basically have made it a gallery, and we've hung our art salon style, that is almost from ceiling to floor. And there's all kinds of art, original, junk, folk art, and it's just a great combination. And we ran out of room, so up on the ceiling, where there used to be an old return vent, there's actually a painting on the ceiling as well. And I did not want to have a chandelier in this house in the center hall, which is traditional, but instead I have my disco ball. And I know now that a lot of people are using disco balls, but I did it like a long time ago when I was in my 20s and danced at Studio 54. Anyway, this is a combination of our things you know, as Dave and I moved in together, he had a lot of furniture that I've tried to use to be sensitive, um, so that it wasn't just my house, my little dollhouse. So all these pieces of furniture are his that he's had for years, and I've just tried to make them work. And the lamps were mine. They're, I think Nate Berkus, when he was on Home Shopping Network, I bought them years ago, and they're in mercury glass, and I love it. And then above, there's a paint drawing, charcoal drawing, that Dave's son Clinton did of our house, and he gave it to us as a Christmas present, which I think is the sweetest thing. And I'm running out of space for hanging art, so I hang the art on the doors. I painted all the doors black in this house. It's something that I did as a designer in my client's house. And when I first proposed it to many of my clients, they would say, "What, are you crazy? Black doors?" But they somehow they just work. And I love them. And then recently, Dave has put these architectural elements, these cornices above the transoms. He, as a contractor of restoring old houses in New Orleans for almost 40 years, has a collection of cypress architectural pieces. And so we're trying to use them so we can enjoy them. The rug is an old zebra rug I've had. It's actually cowhide, not really zebra. It's beat up, but I recommend them for anybody who has pets and kids. They're impervious to everything, and I love it. And of course, I have the ubiquitous ghost chairs because, these old houses are full of ghosts and they need a place to sit down. And what else can I do? Oh, let's come over to the bar. Every Southern home has a bar, and it's looked down upon, I guess, if you don't drink. So I have a great bar, and I do drink, and I have a whiskey every night. And these pieces of art here are very interesting. I taught tango for 20 years, Argentine tango, and these posters are of sheet music, tango sheet music, and they were in the studio that I taught tango in with my husband Alberto. So they made it here, they made the cut. But again, we're so fortunate to have high ceilings in this house. It's a very Southern thing, so I could go all the way up with those tango posters. Another piece that is Dave's is this curio cabinet, which I never thought that I would ever come to love a curio cabinet. But what's great is that I have a lot of dishes because I like to entertain. So I kind of kicked all of Dave's knickknacks out and put my glasses and my dinnerware into this cabinet. And it's close to the kitchen and the dining area. So it's pretty convenient. It's not really a curio or a curiosity cabinet anymore. The top shelf has a few trinkets. Dave and I are trinket whores. We just love our trinkets. And so there's a combination of things here. There's a picture of Alberto and a dear friend John at Christmas time, silly hats, and there's some tango stuff. And then we get down to the serious. I give this sign to Dave when we first started dating, but that's actually a lie. I cook better than I kiss, but I didn't know if I would get him if I told him that. So anyway, this is all like glassware that I had, and I have like a variety of martini glasses because I like my martinis. And oh, someone just gave me these. These are beautiful pink coupes. It's just lovely. I don't know what I'm going to drink out of that, but I'll think of something. And then plates. This is a set that belonged to Dave's mother, and we recently got it out of storage, and I cleaned it up, and I actually had a dinner party using it. It's quite lovely. I think those are, I could be magnolias or gardenias, but very Southern. Dave is originally from South Carolina. And then these are all my little plates that I use, and who doesn't love a silver wine coaster. So lovely, so genteel. And it's just like become like a very useful piece of furniture. And so I had to stop being so prejudiced against brown furniture and curio cabinets because now I love her. Other thing, hats. I like hats. I have a bad hair day, I'll wear a hat. So I got a lot of them. Dave loves hats, so we've got them all around. So we're on the other side of the center hall as you come in the front door. So I love this vantage point. You know, you see the disco ball, you see all the art. And some of the interesting things that I collect are lovers' eyes. And they were things that were done like in the 18th century, little portraits of a sweetheart's eye. And they were worn as jewelry or little paintings. And it was kind of like a secret language. That people exchange, and you maybe could not be open in your relationship, but you could present this little piece of yourself, and I just love them. I've been attracted to them forever, and I can't afford them to collect the antiques. So a friend of mine gave me this lover's eye. It's painted in an oyster shell. How fabulous is that? I love that. That's my friend Jessica gave that to me. And then she also gave me this wonderful little plate with a lover's eye. She knows what I like. This is my friend Madison, who made this oil painting of an eye for me. And then the other ones are just junk prints, you know, but they work. And that's another thing that I like to tell people, to mix things that maybe cost nothing, or you cut out of a magazine and frame it, or you have really precious things. But I love the lover's eye, and I would like to have my eye painted for my sweetheart, Dave. Then this little piece I really love. My friend Felix Plaza in New York, I went to art school with him 50 years ago, and we're still friends. And he is just the most wonderful artist. And he knows that I love these classical odalisques because I think I'm an odalisque. I lay around a lot like that. And she's just beautiful. And he sent me that little drawing. And then I had this little dollhouse like chaise, and it looks like she's laying on the chaise. I mean, I'm so corny. This is Dave up here when he was young. He plays bluegrass music, and there he is with his banjo. And he asked me, why do I have these candles with the ladies? And I said, I don't know, I just liked them and I bought them. You know, I'm crazy. And these little paintings came from the 1980s, I think, at a big pier antique show in New York. And they're attributed to Bucks County artists. Ooh, there you hear the train. Now you know where I live, right on the track. All right, we'll let it go by. Some people ask if the train bothers us. We wouldn't have moved here if it bothered us. We actually like it. Then over here, this is funny. This was a beautiful bouquet that I got in the summer, but I let it dry. And I used to arrange flowers for a woman in New York named Madame du Mailleret. And she never let me get rid of the dead flowers. She thought that death and flowers were very beautiful. So I always have a dead flower, or a dried flower, if you want to be polite, arrangement. And I think of Madame du Mailleret following me around, reading French poetry to me as I arranged the flowers in her Upper East Side townhouse. It was crazy. Anyway, you come from the front porch through this door, and this door has the original glass. This was a style for these houses, this colored glass. But when we got this house, the door had been kicked in by vandals, the little bastards. And anyway, Dave redid the door and rebuilt it, and we've restored it. And I think it's just great that we still have that. And he also had a cypress architectural remnant, and we put the transom up and did the numbers. So we restored this whole front door situation, but it looks very much like it would have looked 100 years ago. So from the center hall, you can go into one bedroom on one side, another bedroom on the other side, and then straight through the kitchen. But to the left is my living room, and I'd like to go in there next. The first thing we did was put air conditioning and heat. Didn't have a system. We had the place painted white. We had the outside of the house painted because it looked sad. And other than that, we didn't do too much. We really did a soft restoration and renovation. It's, you know, you'll see as we go through the house, the biggest thing is that there's a kitchen area, and Dave recently enlarged it and did some wonderful things there because the termites had basically eaten it, and we had to do it. It was embarrassing when we would have people over and the ceiling would be like looking like it was going to come down on us. So that's the most recent renovation. Basically, I think that if you walked into this house, you know, 100 years ago, it would basically be the same. My house in New Orleans was kind of known. I had a blog for years called The Visual Vamp. And because of that blog, my home was photographed for editorial, and I was on the Preservation Resource Center's Shotgun House tour a couple of times. So I had a very different point of view. And my late husband, Alberto, really didn't mind anything that I did. I mean, that poor man had to sit on a small girly couch for years, and, you know, so I had my things. Now, Dave had his home, and he had a completely different look. I mean, this man never met a piece of brown furniture he didn't like. And so we had to combine and downsize at the same time. So I sold most of my furniture, and I had a lot of Dave's brown furniture that I've since come to love, but it was interesting trying to combine the two styles. And so this house is not very decorator, let's put it that way, but it's really charming. It's very colorful. It's very cozy, and it has kind of like the aesthetic of a English cottage, I guess you would say. I have been influenced by European interiors since I traveled to Europe for the first time when I was 22. So it has elements of that, and it's just a big happy hodgepodge. All right, so I'm coming from the center hall into our living room, and it's a pretty nice living room for such a small house. I think this house is about 1,200 square feet, but it looks bigger because high ceilings and, you know, the rooms being separate. I'm not a fan of open floor plan. I like individual rooms. I think it's more human in scale. But anyway, this room is unusual because it has 2 doors. And we believe that this was a house for railroad workers, and that maybe this space was rented out and people used that door instead of the front door. But I didn't want 2 doors, so I decided to camouflage it. And I have been a big fan, like everybody else in the world, of that fancy Decor wallpaper. But who can afford it? And I was not knowing if wallpaper should be applied to antique beadboard. So what did I do? I went to Plan Z, and I bought wrapping paper. This is lots of sheets of wrapping paper. And from my old photo stylist days, when you just, with smoke and mirrors, I stapled it up like in a mad fit. So, and another thing, I hate all this talk about, oh, you shouldn't do accent walls. Well, you know, my mother taught me about accent walls. And I think if an accent wall works for you, do it. And I wanted to also camouflage the big black hole of the TV screen. And when the wall was white, man, that thing like jumped out at you. So putting this very lovely hand-painted wrapping paper up really helped this wall. And then the same company, it's called Society 6. It's really cool. They have artists that make these things, and they will make the same print on coffee mugs, on T-shirts, on bedspreads. So they had a curtain. So I said, well, that's perfect. And so I love how the print exploded, you know, from the little bird to the big bird. So it's kind of my way to deal with an awkward situation. And I love it. I hope you love it too. Then, very, very fortunate to have the original fireplace to this house. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because a hurricane blew the chimney off a long time ago. But it has the summer screen. That's what this metal screen is called in homes, in southern homes. And you put this up during the summer months to disguise the hearth. And this probably burned coal because the hearth is very shallow. But what I have inside of it is a tacky fake fire with logs that has like a little flicker, and it's a heater. And I actually use it in the winter. It makes it very cozy. And I have the mantle kind of tricked out in the autumn theme because there's no leaves turning this color here. So I use fake ones to make me think of my time in New York. And I'm doing Thanksgiving soon, so I'm just putting up some subtle Thanksgiving decor because I am thankful every day of the year. This could stay up all year. And I have that big nod to loving English decor. So I have my staffies here. You know, it's so corny. I'm corny, but I like it. And then I have little coastal things. I call it sly coastal. You know, when you move to a beach property, people go overboard with making a theme, coastal theme, you know. And I didn't want to do that. You know, I wasn't going to have any like flip flop key holders or, you know, this way to the beach pillows or anything. But I still wanted a nod to it being a coastal house. And I imagined, in my big imagination, that if a sea captain lived here, he would collect all things from around the world and blah, blah, blah. So I have this beautiful little pond boat. And I also have, you know, this picture of a sailing ship that I got in Cape Cod. And when I travel, I don't buy like a souvenir t-shirt. I go to antique stores and try to buy something of the region. And above it is this beautiful piece of art by a New York artist called Jennifer Lane. And I just love all those shades of blue. Again, very sly coastal, a nod to the blue. So I have a lot of books, as you can see. And believe it or not, when I moved here, I downsized and gave a lot of my books away. And when I unpacked my books, I was like, oh, I thought I downsized. And I have no room. I collect, you know, art books and design books, and I love them. And I'm in a few of them. And I didn't know what to do. So I had this tower, and that always held books. So, you know, they just end up tucked away wherever I can do them. And here, again, it's just, you know, where I can fit them. And I like to have them handy. There's an old Eastlake music stand back there that belongs to Dave, and I've crammed it full of books. And this is a mid-century modern, you know, lucite table, and it's a little book nook. And then, of course, this table was a kitchen table that Dave had, and I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, what? An oak pedestal table? Ugh. But I've come to love it, and it fits in this corner, and I can put books on it. And I can put flowers on it. And I have little artwork here. These are my ladies. This is the Baroness Pontalba. This is, again, my friend Felix Plaza did the classic Manet picture, and that's Victorine. She was also a very nice artist in her own right. And this is Marie Laveau, painted by a very prolific New Orleans artist named Andrew Lamar Hopkins, who's in my book, Bohemian Soul. His house is unbelievable. And then this is a lady I got, and I painted orange because why not? And a little Fornasetti plate. So it's kind of like my ladies' gallery, which brings me to another story about this room. If you look around, you're going to see portraits. And one is of me by a dearly departed friend of mine, Louis St. Louis, and that is also his painting. So he's with me every day. And again, it was my smart-ass version of an old English country house in their portrait gallery. So this is my portrait gallery. And I do love all of the paintings. My friend Jenny Andrews did this boy. I think he's just so beautiful. Mateo, another friend, that's his self-portrait. This is Ashley Longshore in her early days. Going further is a portrait of my dearest friend in the world, Michael Palke, and below him is his friend Kenny, who has since passed on. So I love the portrait gallery, and it's a way, like if you have art, to maybe group a collection, like if you collect landscapes or portraits or whatever, and group them in one room, and it has an impact, I think. And I love that people always think that I'm Audrey. They say, "Is that you?" I wish. I say, "Wish." And then there's another great portrait that was done of me in 1984 by a wonderful fashion illustrator named Mats Gustafsson, and he's rather famous. So he did this for my birthday in 1984. I think I look exactly the same, don't you? So moving along, we have a lot of furniture in here, and yet I don't think it feels like cramped. But I learned a trick from a classic interior designer named Billy Baldwin. And he always said that your chairs should look like they're talking to one another, that your furniture should be arranged, as they're having a conversation. So again, I like to have people over, and I like to have seating. And, I can use the ottoman from the Eames chair as separate seating. Got these two chairs. And these chairs are interesting because they're really inexpensive. They were like a couple $100s, and I had orange velvet chairs in the French style in my New Orleans house, and I sold them. And then when I moved here, I was so sad that I sold them. And I said, well, I got to get some more orange chairs. And I got these because it was like a nice transition between Dave's style and my style. And I love that they have a slight mid-century modern feel. And I like to mix up mid-century antiques and contemporary, and I like to just play and start a dialogue between different pieces and periods of furniture. And how I make them work, I don't know. It's like mixing patterns. If you start counting the patterns in this room, there's probably 15. And people say, well, how do you make it work? And I said, I don't know, just luck. So anyway, this is a little throwback to the 1970s, this wicker elephant table. I think my mom had one. This is a new one. I just had to have it. And when I brought it in the house, Dave said, what is that? And I said, well, it's an elephant table. Don't you think we needed one? So, and the piece behind is his credenza that he has had for probably 40, 50 years. And I think he bought it for $20 in Iowa. And we had to have this piece in here because he treasures it. So I made it work by putting chairs in front of it. No, cut that out. So this is a house where animals live and do what they want. So the cat, the dog, they're on the furniture. Very English to live with the dog here. So Lily has her dog bed next to my chaise, which I spend a lot of time. This belonged to Dave's mother, and it's a secretary. And at first I was going to use it as a desk, but now it's just junk, my junk. And I always had mood boards. I guess they call them vision boards now, where I would put interesting things to inspire me, or I'm sentimental, people send me things. So I just took the fretwork of the glass doors and started shoving things in it. I guess it's a little messy, but I like it. It's a mood board to me. But inside, if I don't have enough junk out, I have a lot of stuff in here as well. Oh, there goes my thing for the door because it's rickety, but I have a whole bunch of things. Every year, Dave's son gives me a Tiffany ornament for the Christmas tree, so I save those boxes. And it's just stuff, but it's sentimental and cute. And there's my Jeff Koons dog. Yeah. So, and oh, this is fun. This is a tambourine when I was in the rock band. It was called Raven. I was the lead singer. I still have my tambourine. So what else? Okay. So let's close her up. Oh, did you know that the pineapple is a sign of hospitality? So I have a little pineapple, but I have big hospitality, even though it's a tiny pineapple. There we go. All right, so we'll close her up. And I got to put my high-tech wedge in here. Whoop. Because the house is crooked and the doors fly open, so that goes in there. See, that's a tip for homeowners, the wedge made out of orange cardboard. The rug is Dave's, and I love it. There was a point like from 2008 to about 2012 where traditional rugs were just out, out, out. And you'll see it because I have them in my bedroom, but cowhide and Moroccan rugs and all that was the rage. So again, Dave had this rug and I was like, well, I don't know. What am I going to do with it? Now I love it so much. It has great coloration and it hides a multitude of sins of, well, I like to think it does. Maybe not on camera. I hope there's not dog hair all over it, but it's great. And it was the perfect size for this room. And because I wanted the old floors to show up. You know, we didn't refinish the floors as such. They got a light screening and a cleaning and then a very light coat of polyurethane on them, but they were not refinished like down to the nub. Then they're the original old floors. This is a funny story. You know, I'm buying furniture. It's my money. I can do what I want. But still, when you're in a partnership, you like to respect your partner. And Dave thinks I spend too much money on the house, which I probably do. So I saw this chaise lounge, and it was on Etsy, Regretsy. And it was a discontinued, brand new, one of a kind. And I just love this print. It was like so Florentine or something. I just wanted it. And I had another couch with a chaise. That's another story. But I missed the chaise lounge. So it arrived. I was trying to time the arrival when he was like on a road trip so I could just sneak it in. But it arrived early and it was near his birthday. So I told him it was his birthday present. He never believed me. And of course, I sit on it all the time in the dog. And I always say, Dave, you know, you can sit here if you like. He goes, you mean my chaise lounge? I said, yeah, your chaise lounge. But anyway, it's great. And I often open my laptop. This becomes my office. Some more Sly Coastal. I couldn't help myself. I got all these little vintage sailboat pictures. I was very inspired by John Darien's beautiful house on Cape Cod. I couldn't do what he does, but I went a little crazy. But it's just Sly Coastal. It's not like beating you on the head. And then up there is some Majolica. I had a huge Majolica collection from New York to New Orleans, but I sold most of it. And those are the pieces that didn't sell. And a couple of them came from Lauren Bacall. I did a party at her house in the Hamptons, and she gifted me a couple of her Majolica collection. So they could have sold, but they didn't, so it was meant to be. Then this little guy, this is another thing. This is by a Southern artist called Butch Anthony. And again, I can't afford like a big piece. So if you're collecting art, if you buy the smalls, they're often affordable. So I have a nice little Butch Anthony, and I love her. She's so like kinky with that mask and the bone. He always uses bones, and I'm like, I like that kinky lady, so I got her. So then, as we move around my expansive living room, talk about my silk drapes. When I worked at Perch, I worked for drapes. I never knew anything about silk drapes, but Southern women love silk taffeta drapes. They're like ball gowns for the window. And I got obsessed, but I had to have them in this lime chartreusey green, which is one of my favorite colors, to just not be so much of a typical Southern belle with like pale blue or something. And I've had them now since about 2009, and they're starting to rot because silk rots from the sun that comes in on them. And I said, oh my God, I'm like those customers who used to come into Perch and have their silk drapes for 25 years, and they'd be like in rags, and they'd have to like cough up the money to get new drapes, and they were so shocked at how prices had changed. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll let them just hang as rags. But I love them. And they were in my house in New Orleans, and they just fit in here. And again, it's kind of like this luxury silk drapes, you know, with like in this little funky little cottage that once maybe housed railroad workers. And I just love that. I just think it's grand. The story of this couch. I had a couch. Dave came into my life, and I had like little dollhouse furniture. So when he came into my life, I bought this big sectional with a chaise. And I crammed it in my little shotgun house in New Orleans, and it moved here. And then we got a dog, and she was on it, and the dog hair was driving me crazy. I couldn't keep up with it. So I gave it away. And I said, I'm going to get a leather couch. You know, what man doesn't love leather? And so I got this sofa, and Dave doesn't really like it that much. He sits on it once in a while. And I covered the cushions in these little velvet slip covers that you can buy, you know, I won't say the A word, but you know where. And I love that because leather is not dog friendly. Can you believe it? After several couches, we finally have a sofa that I think is nice, but only me and the dog love it. So here we go. And that's about it for the living room. Shall we move on? Well, the professional journey is a long one. And I'm art school trained, and I always believe that anybody who goes to art school can do anything and everything to do with visual arts. So I'm in New York. It's the 80s. I'm in a rock band. I'm working in a wonderful restaurant in Soho called the Soho Charcuterie, and staff lunch, and I'm eating my staff lunch after the break between lunch and dinner. And the owner of the restaurant was doing the restaurant flowers, and I'm watching her. And she says, "What are you looking at?" And I said, "Well, I'm just watching you do the flowers." And she goes, "Well, do you think you could do this?" And I said, "Yeah, what's the big deal? It's just a 3D flower painting." She goes, "Okay, well, from now on, you go to the flower market, you do the weekly flowers, and any off-premise parties we have, you're going to do the flowers. This is the budget, go." And I was like, okay. So I didn't know anything about the flower market on 28th Street in New York. And I go, and you have to go really early in the morning. So that kind of cut into my nightlife. And I didn't know the names of the flowers. I didn't know how they were sold. And so it was a whole education. But the guys down there thought I was just great because I was this quirky looking art chick coming in to a man's world. Back then, there were no independent floral designers or event designers. There was a man's world, and it was mainly the old Greeks that had those flower shops. So that was the beginning of my education. And so I would do the restaurant flowers, and customers would come in. I was a maitre d' there, by the way, for 6 years. So the customers would come in and say, ooh, who did these flowers? They're kind of cool. And I was, well, I did. Well, they say, I'm having a little dinner party. Would you come in? Yeah. So I started doing flowers. And I got my first big job. It was at the Cooper Hewitt Museum, and it was huge. Martha Stewart was there and oohed and ahed over my flowers and blah, blah, blah. So I didn't even have a bank account then. I would put money through my future husband. I was married a few times, so this was another husband. I would put it through his account. So this was a job that was thousands of dollars of payment. So the company calls me up and says, where would you like the check sent? And I said, well, can you make it out to my boyfriend? Because I put it in his, oh, no. We need to have a company name. And so I'm there thinking on the phone, I'm talking on the phone. I said, So they said, well, what is the name of your company? And I said, Valerie Hart Designs. So they said, okay. So they sent a messenger over with the check, and I had this check, and I couldn't put it through my boyfriend's bank account. So I went down and started the little doing business as yourself, and I started my business that way. And that business grew. I became an event designer after the restaurant closed, and I had 15 years of being an event designer in New York with my own business, and got burned out, got divorced, mother died, cat died, turning point in my life, universe trying to tell me something. I was probably about 43, and I had gone to Spain for one of the events that I did there for the IMF, and I liked the Spanish-speaking culture And I was very obnoxious with my phrasebook Spanish. And Christie's, the auction house, was one of my clients. And I said, please, please, invite me to parties with Spanish-speaking people so I can practice my Spanish. Okay, so I go to the party. And I had long blonde hair then and dressed in these ersatz, kind of like Chanel knockoffs. And the South Americans gravitated towards me. They thought I was a famosa rubia tenida de Buenos Aires, one of the famous blondes of Buenos Aires. So I start speaking my crackpot phrasebook Spanish, and they go, oh, she's an American. But anyway, I had recently been divorced, and they traveled like in groups and did things. So we would, oh, darling, let's go dance the salsa. Oh, darling, let's go to the movies. Oh, darling, let's go to this cocktail party. And we would often end up at my apartment. I had a nice large apartment on what I call the Chillage on the border of the Village in Chelsea, late at night, and somebody would, we'd make pasta or, drink wine. And so part of my rock and roll thing, I had a lot of world music, and one of the guys was going to put on a CD, and he noticed that I had Argentine tango music. Oh my goodness, they said, oh, she's got tango music. Let's teach her to dance a tango. So when we go to the black tie parties and they play tango, we can dance. Well, that led me on the whole journey of learning to dance Argentine tango, which led me to California to this thing called Stanford Tango Week, where I met my future husband, Alberto Paz, and became tango dancers and teachers, and we danced and taught all over the world. In the meantime, one of the places that we taught was New Orleans. We came to do a workshop there in 1999. And we liked it so much because he had a house in California and I had left New York to live with him in California. And I did not like California. Sorry, California people. And so we decided to move to New Orleans. And things were great. And we were making a living, teaching, and we wrote a book about tango, and we published a magazine about tango. And then we had a nice nest egg from selling his house in California. But then the 2008 crash came, and we lost a lot of money in our retirement account. So I decided to go back to work, and I got a little job at a home decor store around the corner from me called Perch on Magazine Street. And I worked there for about 3 years, and I learned a lot about interior design. And again, people gravitated towards my style, so I started to pick up little freelance interior design jobs on the side. And that was pretty good, but it was a different kind of focus. I wasn't like driven like I was in my 40s, and it was more casual. But I did have a nice little career, and I also worked for New Orleans Homes and Lifestyle magazines with my photographer, Sarah Essex Bradley. We've done a couple of books together, and I was a stylist. It was back in the day when they actually paid money for a stylist, and I wrote the articles and we produced them. So that was like about 10 years worth, and led to another book. And here I am now living in Bay St. Louis and working on my third book called Bohemian by the Bay. So now we're back in the center hall, and we're going to check out the bedrooms. And this house has 2 bedrooms. I look like an airline hostess. And Dave and I have separate rooms. And I recommend it to couples. When we want to cuddle, we get together, but he gets to decorate his room the way he likes, and I get to decorate my room the way I like. I stay up late watching TV. He goes to bed early, so it just works out. So Dave's room is very sweet. He has a lot of antiques and furniture from his family and his own artwork and architectural details. And it's his and his guitars and his TV, and he has a little ensuite bathroom that he just created in a recent renovation, and it's wonderful. And I'll come and visit him, and he'll come and visit me. And if you come this way, we'll go, and I'm just across the hall. We often talk to each other across the hall or text each other. So, we're so modern. Okay, so this is my bedroom, and I was very influenced by a book that I read back in the 80s called a French woman's bedroom. And it was very feminine and it had art. But I like feminine, but I don't like over the top girly whirly. So anyway, this bed was a bed that I bought when Dave came into my life because I had a little tiny double bed that I was sleeping in then, and it was like too small. So it's ironic that I'm sleeping in this bed by myself, but I still like it. And then the wall is covered with fabric. And I had this same fabric print in my New Orleans living room. And this is another stylist trick. You know, I don't starch it, I don't do anything. It's stapled up. And fabric was very inexpensive. I was inspired by a Clarence House fabric that Sarah Ruffins Costello had in her New York apartment, but I couldn't afford that. So was like probably like $7-8 a yard, but I think it looks great. And then the mirror is a nod to those French mirrors, the sunburst, but this was done by Colin Cowie, the event designer, and it's kind of glammy and blinged out, and I loved that. And the sconces came from Etsy, and the tapestry is made in France, so you know I had to have it, you know. So anyway, then this screen was a gift from one of Dave's friends who left New Orleans. And this house has no closets, and I needed a closet. So at first we just hung some racks, and that was fine. And I had a shoe rack with like 50 pairs of dance shoes, and I wasn't happy. So I ended up creating this closet space behind the screen. Don't pay attention to the man behind the screen. No. And it works. I mean, you know, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm used to small spaces, small closets, small kitchens, small bathrooms. So it works for me. And you can see all my junk. You know, I still costume. This town has a festival every other minute that you costume for. Witches Walk, Dolly Should for Dolly Parton, Frida Fest. So I have a lot of costumes, and I still costume. So this is it. I just closed that up. And right outside my closet, my walk-in closet, is my vanity. And I think every woman needs one of these, a dressing table. I really do my makeup and my hair here all the time. And I've had this one since we moved to New Orleans. It was a junk piece that I bought for $10, and I painted it many times. And the lamps come from a shop in Sag Harbor called Ruby Beats when I had a little house in the Hamptons. And I put a mirror on this, had a mirror cut to do the top. So it's kind of glam. And then, a little Frenchy stuff. But this above the door is the latest acquisition by a New Orleans artist called Georges Darreau, and I just absolutely love him. He's since passed on. And behind this door are all my caftans. You know, I'm at that age where wearing a caftan is very glamorous and comfortable and hides a lot of sins. And these are some of my wigs that I have, you know, that I wear for costumes. And this one's going to be for the Dolly Parton costume event here called Dolly Should. Every year on January 11th, which is her birthday, the Mockingbird Cafe up the street has a Dolly contest where you costume contest, and everybody dresses up like Dolly Parton, and we all have a good time. So that's a fun thing, my wig. And what everything is hanging on is an old candelabra. I don't think you can see it, and I didn't have room for it. And, you know, so I just turned it into my caftan holder. It's very glamorous. These are ballet shoes from when I was a dancer, when I was a child. I've kept those all these years. And then if we swing around this way, this is a little French settee that I had in New Orleans. And this was one of the dollhouse pieces of furniture that I tortured both Alberto and Dave with. So now it's ended up in my bedroom. And I do sit here sometimes and have coffee, you know, when the dog is on the bed and won't give me any room. And then this I call my wall of shame, which that's a joke. I mean, I'm very proud of these photographs. I was an artist model, putting myself through art school back in the day. So I have a lot of photographs, you know, from photographers that I modeled for. And there's a picture of me and my rock band in the 1980s. It was called Raven. Pictures of Alberto and I. That's our book cover. We wrote a book called Got a Tango. There's one here, oh, Audrey Hepburn and my friend Daniel, who has passed away. I did a party for her, flowers at the Museum of Modern Art for a party that was given in her honor. So it was before cell phones, cameras. So that was like somebody snapped that shot and I got that little print. And just interesting things. These are the latest I post for a photographer in New Orleans named Roy Gust, and he was trying to do a series called the Belloc Project, and he was doing photographs in the manner of E.J. Belloc, who filmed Storyville. So at 66 years old, I was taking my clothes off for Roy. And this is a funny photograph that a friend gave me of a dog in Mexico, Lisa Conrad. She's a very good photographer. And she said, nobody else but you would hang that. And she's right. I love it, that little doggy woggy. So, all right, let's walk around to my bathroom, which I share with my cat, Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. And Dave put a cat door in for her. That's her entrance. And the reason she has to have a cat door and this door closed because Lily will eat her food, or worse, when the litter box is out. So we keep this door closed and Kitty Kitty Bang Bang can go in and out and eat in peace. So this bathroom is small. But as I say, I'm a New Yorker and any bathroom is going to be small in New York. But what I have that I didn't have in New York are 2 windows in my bathroom. I'm so thrilled. So recently, Dave made a bathroom for himself. So I got to decorate my bathroom the way I want it. So I did this, again, peel and stick, rose wallpaper. I don't know. I was going for a Dorothy Draper look. I don't know if you know who she was. She was a woman that had the first interior design business, I think, 1920s to 1960s, and her most famous project was the Greenbrier Hotel. And she did these big prints, like big roses and the banana leaves and stripes. And she mixed it all together, and it was so exuberant. And her motto was, decorating is fun. So I inherited the blue tile floor. So I said, well, what can I do? I didn't want to do like, the typical bathroom. So I said, well, red looks good with blue and blah, blah, blah. And then I also had these posters that I got. I got a poster, in Havana, and it had the colors of red, white, and blue. And I got another poster of the Rolling Stones when they were in Havana. And I had this ugly shelf here. And I said to Dave, do you have a piano hinge? And he says, why? And I said, well, I want to put this piece of art. So the art has become my cabinet door. And I think that's a cool tip for anybody to do. You can do it on a recessed wall, but it's so cool. So I got my cabinet door here. And that's my bathroom. And I love it. It's just big enough for me. And Kitty Kitty Bang Bang. She's a good roommate. What makes a home have soul? Well, it's the people in it. You can have a lot of things, but if you don't have people who love the home, love each other, then it's just a pile of stuff. And okay, so in terms of decor, that pile of stuff, I think that art, books, flowers, that's my mantra, are things that give a home soul. I think personal collections give a thing a home soul. I think being fearless and not following slavish trends gives a home soul. Not becoming addicted to Instagram and trying to copy Instagram homes. In the old days, it was looking at magazines, and I remember there was a movie called The Goodbye Girl. She's an actress, and he's an actor, and he gets a job and he gets a bit of money. And so she finally gets to decorate their apartment, and she's got a magazine, and she's going to Bloomingdale's, and she's buying all the furnishings and painting it and putting it all together. And the scene is she's looking at the magazine and she goes, doesn't really look like this. And so that was a lesson to learn, that you can be inspired by things, but trying to copy them is soulless. So, you find out what you want. I mean, even as a young person, you know what you like and you know what you don't like. And if you're true to that, your home will have soul. I love my house because it's us. We have a combination of our things. I love to have people over. I mean, it's such a cliche. I love to entertain, but I mean, it's true. Love to have dinner parties. Been having dinner parties since I've been in my 20s and lived on St. Mark's Place and dragged a table in from the street, and made, chuck pot roast and, but I mean, I love the age of it, that it's an old house. I love that it's in this community of Bay St. Louis, which is a very artistic community and very welcoming. I've never had such wonderful women friends. It's just a little gem, and it's just the perfect size, except for storage. I wish I had more storage closets, but I love so many things about it. I love the color. I love the feeling. I love the comfort. I love that it's ours, that we were able to buy it with no mortgage, and this will be our last stop, I reckon. We're coming into the kitchen now, and these handles, they're for sailboats. They're teak. It's another sly coastal thing, but it's really good for me because I'm an old lady and I didn't want a railing, and I got these to hang on to. So that's a nice tip. Instead of those ugly, stainless steel grab bars, I've got sailboat handles. Anyway, step down 2 steps into the kitchen. This was an addition that was probably put on the house about 100 years ago. And it's common in Southern homes to add these kind of spaces for kitchens and bathrooms. And so when we first moved here, it pretty much ended here. And it had a couple of columns and some sheetrock arch. It was strange. And the sink was over here, and had an old stove from the 1930s that didn't work. For the first couple of years, I used a hot plate, a microwave, and a toaster oven because we didn't know what we wanted to do. So recently, a few months ago, the termites had eaten this place down to the nitty-gritty. It was embarrassing. So Dave redid this whole kitchen, but he did it keeping it looking old, looking original. So all the walls have been redone, insulation put in, and where he could use the old boards he did, but he did a seamless thing. And then I asked him to, honey, do you think we could, one of those. So the sink was over here, and I wanted to look out the window. I mean, that's where a sink should be. So this unit, he moved it over. He made the window smaller. It was a much larger window. He uses his collection of architectural elements, and he has all this great stained glass. And so I said to him, I know we don't want sheetrock in this house, but could we just have one sheetrock wall because I want to do wallpaper? And he was like, what? I want to do subway tile. I said, no, I want to do this wallpaper, this beautiful scenic mural that's unexpected in a kitchen because we dine, and it's kind of like a nod to a formal dining room in the kitchen. At least that was my story, and I was sticking to it. So this came via Etsy from somebody who prints this in Poland, and I just love the way it looks. And it kind of just makes the place so special. And I like blue and white, as you can see, so we ran with that. The floor mats are interesting because this floor is very old, and it has a lot of cracks, and it catches a lot of food. So I found these floor mats. I was looking for them, and they were very expensive. And I found these at Home Depot. Like $100 for one of them. And so we throw these down, and it really cuts down on all that mess, and they're easy to mop. And I think it looks cool. It's very vintage looking. These cypress pieces are from Dave's collection. He would take things out of old houses, and when people wanted to have new things, and he never met a piece of old cypress that he wouldn't bring home. So we would have these dipped. And again, he didn't use these for years, and we use them here. And I mean, it's great. This is my pantry. So that's cool. So then on the other side of the kitchen, I finally got a stove after a couple of years, and I chose this little Italian stove. I call it my Italian lover. He's just so sweet and cute, and I love it. And he burns hot, so I've had to learn to cook like, slowly. And then I know, you don't like microwaves, I'm telling you. But we wanted a microwave. Dave uses it, I use it. And to find one that fit above this stove was hard. And it's vented, and it's not just noise. He vented it to the outside, so the fan really does work. And I like this black, even though it shows fingerprints. And above it, because I am an Anglophile, I had to have an F&M hamper, of course, darling, like all the rich people have, but I'm not rich. And then over here is another old dresser that painted white. It was Dave's. It's one piece of furniture. He let us paint white. And all these little plate racks I've had for years. And, an English home always has a plate rack. And this hanging thing here came with the house. It's like so cool. So I love it. I mean, I really do a lot of cooking here, and it's all very convenient. The table belonged to Dave. And again, I didn't want a kitchen island. I'm over islands. I don't know about you, but I like having a table, and we sit at it, and it's great prep area. So, I don't think you always need an island. So coming around, da, 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 da. So Dave opened all this up, and this was a combination laundry room and bathroom, and he reconfigured the whole thing. There's a little laundry room behind there, and he made an ensuite bathroom for his bedroom and changed this all around because I was like, I miss my dining room in New Orleans, So this table I got for here. It used to be in the kitchen part, but now I have like a dining area, or like I like to call it a dining room, and it's great. And if I have more than 6, 8 people, I can always add another table here. Before the kitchen was renovated, I had to sit down Thanksgiving dinner for 14 people. Tables, we were all crammed in. If you got in the middle, you couldn't get out to use the restroom. You were stuck. This is another cypress piece, another butler's pantry thing that Dave pulled out of an old house. And it didn't have any glass, so I put the fabric in. I did the striped fabric, and I even finished it nice on the inside. And I love it. And put these little green knobs on. And it holds like my dishes, and glasses, more dishes, because, more is more. I need more. And then this little window seat was Dave's, to another cypress piece that we could finally bring in the house to use. And I got a cushion and just zhuzhed it up. This painting came from my first husband. I married my high school art teacher 50 some years ago. He's getting old, and he has a lot of his paintings, and his kids don't want them. And so he asked me if I would like one of his paintings, and I said yes. And when I first got it, Dave was like, oh, you're not going to hang that in our house. It's so depressing. I said, honey, just work with me here. We got trees on the wallpaper. It's going to be perfect. We got trees over here. It's blue. Believe me, it will work. Now he loves it, and I think it's grand. And the artist's name is Bill Hart. So, and then this is a piece from Dave's grandmother, this chest. It holds linens. He put that stained glass window in, again, from his collection of stained glass. And over the door is a mule shoe for good luck that Karen West, one of my first friends here in Bay St. Louis, brought to us. We were in this house maybe a couple months, and I had a housewarming party. We didn't have any grass, any driveway, nothing. Had to have a party, and she brought that for good luck. And then I love those door handles on the laundry room doors. Very grand and humble, big brass things on that humble door that Dave made from scratch. I mean, he's just amazing. And later on, I'll set the table for you for Thanksgiving. I love my marble table, but for Thanksgiving, I want to use a tablecloth. And this is kind of an Indian block tablecloth that I've had for a lot of years. And it was once on a larger table, but I don't care. We'll make it work. And I like the coloration. I don't do like traditional things. I don't know if you've noticed, but instead of doing like, you know, cornucopias and orange colors. I've done that before, but this year I decided to do something a little softer. So I like that. And then this could be a shawl, a scarf, a sarong, but today it's going to be another layer because I like to layer things. More is more in my book. So layer on this color. I think it's really pretty. It was a birthday gift from my hairdresser. She's so sweet. All right. I think that'll be close enough. Maybe just push this down a little bit. I think that's good. Okay, so now more is more. I'm going to layer these rustic kind of looking placemats. I could do a charger. This table is very narrow because I had it made for the kitchen when it used to be in the kitchen part. And it couldn't be too wide because we wouldn't be able to walk around it. So it's a little narrow. So we have dinner here, but I use the kitchen table as a buffet. You know, I put all the food out and people got to walk and get their food. These plates I've had for a long time. They're reproductions that I bought in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I just like them. I like the black and the white and the gold, and the animals, different animals are so cute. Got some rabbits there. And I think I got an extra, so I'll use the dog here. So those are sweet. So before I go any further, I think I'll use my vintage turkeys as a centerpiece this year. We got this guy, and that's rosemary from my garden. And these guys are candles. Who says I can't be corny? Do these maybe, a little gaggle. I celebrate Thanksgiving like everybody else. Work too hard, cook a huge meal that everybody devours in 10 minutes, and traditional. I don't even like turkey, but I cook it. So I do like having people. And for a long time, when Alberto and I lived in New Orleans, you know, New Orleans is a very friendly place, but it's very family. So you don't get invited to family gatherings. So a lot of times it would be just me and Alberto having Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner together. In New York, I could get 50 people for Thanksgiving or Easter or any time, you know, easily, because, you know, it was a city of transplants. And here it's kind of the same. I had a Thanksgiving here for 14 people before the kitchen was expanded. We were tight. And I meant to do it outside, but the weather turned like it is today, so we had it inside. And I cleared out the center hall and made a big buffet table there so you could serve, and we sat in here. So this year, I didn't know if we could get a table full of people, but Dave has a friend coming from New Mexico, and I managed to get, I think we're going to be 6 or 7 this year. So perfect amount of people. So what else do I have? This is like some corny, cute stuff. John Darien, I'm sure you know, is an interior designer and has cool stores in New York and in Provincetown and Cape Cod. And he likes vintage things, and he makes, this is stuff that he sold at Target of all places. And I bought it last year, and it was just me and Dave last year for Thanksgiving. I couldn't get anybody up. But these things are so damn cute. I just thought I'd bring them out today and see if I am going to use them or not. I might not because I got something else going on, but I kind of think they're fabulous. And his collection at Target this year is pretty fabulous too. He has turkey pillows and platters and all kinds of things, and it's so reasonable. This whole box was like $10, and I think it's like so freaking cute. Here, we'll have those guys talking to each other. And I think I may just use those. And then of course we got like little scattery things like little fruits and autumn leaves. Got to have an autumn leaf or two. Oop, oop, oop. Here, maybe I'll stick one in there for fun. Let me look in here. I have so many tricks. Oh, place cards. What place card do I want to use this year? I don't know. I save my place cards, and it's like going down memory lane, you know, of people who have come to various dinners. And then I don't know if I'm going to use them, but I just want to show you the other thing that I keep. I have napkin rings, and some people like them and some people don't. I mean, I have some really cool ones. I mean, these all have numbers on them. They're like antique bone or something, and I just think they're really spectacular. My friend Michael Pelkey gives me a lot of these things. He calls them hostess gifts. These I love. They look like Hermes buckles or something. Oh, I just got these recently. Look at this duck, brass duck. Christmas ornaments, because, you know, everybody loves a theme. Anyway, I love these little place card holders, and I also use them as menu holders. And I think it's nice to have a place card because I think it makes you feel special when you come over that you have a place for you. And it's not everybody standing around saying, well, where do you want me to sit? Where do you want me to sit, you know? I call Michael Pelkey Mrs. Pelkey because he's my best, dearest, long-time gay friend, Mrs. Pelkey. He's known that way all over the world. And we also call each other Celeste. So Celeste, you're coming to Thanksgiving. He lives in Key West. You better book his ticket now. Okay. Anyway, you get the idea. They can also just be, you know, laid on top of the plate or next to the plate. They don't have to be in the little, this is for Alberto just in memory because I miss him. It's my girlfriend Jessica. She just lost her husband John, who both sat at our table a lot. So Jessica, I hope you feel better and you come for Thanksgiving. Okay, so let me get rid of this. Okay, so next. The family silver. It's not really. I come from working class family. I never had family silver. But I bought these when I was in my 30s, and I love them. They're vintage. They're silver plate. They're not really sterling or anything, but I've used them ever since, and I just love them. I picked up, I think, a whole set once at a flea market or something. I don't know. I've had them forever. I can't remember everything, kids. I mean, I try. And once a year, I polish them, or actually dip them in Tarnex, which you're not supposed to do. And if you notice, I'm setting the fork downwards. Something, a little affectation I picked up in France, you know, and the feeling is that putting the tines of the fork down is more hospitable. This way, it's aggressive. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. And so just do that. This was another hostess present from Michael Pelkey from Celeste. And he goes to a lot of estate sales and he buys things. He's an interior designer in Key West. So he finds things for his clients. So he sent me these perfectly pressed, beautiful vintage napkins. So I said, why don't I use them this year? And I don't have to iron any napkins. So thank you, Michael. So I think I will use a napkin ring just because I have them and they're cute. Mrs. Pelkey, you're number one. You know, the idea of the number, I guess, back in the old days, you kept your napkin for a few meals. I mean, it sounds ghastly to us who are, you know, are such a throwaway society, but you kept it and you would have the number or your name if you had engraved napkin rings, you know, and so you could take your napkin and use it a few times before it got laundered. And voila, this is the table. Maybe out of some candlesticks later, I'll see how I feel about that. These are kind of special. I love this monkey. And maybe I'll move Mr. Turkey down. Anyway, you know, it's a work in progress like anything. And I will definitely come back and tweak it later. But anyway, happy Thanksgiving. What does home mean to me? Home's something actually that you carry inside of yourselves. You can be anywhere, in a tent, sleeping in a box under the bridge, apartment, house, traveling. Home is something that you have deep within yourself. And that's what home means to me. It means having a sense of self, having confidence, having a love for beauty around you, being visually aware, being gracious and open and welcoming, and having fun, you know, fun. That's what home means to me. Well, do you think I'm homeworthy? Homeworthy? Well, thanks for coming. Time to go. I'm going in now. I swear, no more talking. Peace, love, tango, happy Thanksgiving. Come back, maybe. Ciao.
Today on Homeworthy, we're taking you to Oxford, Mississippi for a look inside interior designer Priscilla Wright's darling home. Fondly regarded as the tree house, Priscilla's colonial-style home is enveloped by gorgeous historic trees that line the property. Inspired by her surroundings, Priscilla has beautifully woven greens and leaf patterns into her classic and traditional decor. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, Homeworthy. Welcome to our home in Oxford, Mississippi. I'm Priscilla Wright, and I'm so excited to welcome you here and show you around our home today. Come on in. Hello, my name is Priscilla Wright, and I'm an interior designer. Welcome to our home called the Tree House in Oxford, Mississippi. We call it the Tree House because during our renovation, a friend visited it, and he said this is just like living in a tree house because we have many beautiful historic trees surrounding the property. And the house is open plan. This is our great room, we call it. And you'll see there's no entry hall. You just walk right in. So I use this 17th century English table as an anchor for the entry and arranged the gathering area and the dining area on either side. I always have books. I have an extensive collection of design books. We have a lot of gardening books, history books, holiday books, so I change the books according to what's going on. I always have something living in the middle of the table, flowers, a plant, etc., because I think it's very important to have something alive in your house besides you. And then this lantern hanging over the table is from London, and you'll note it has the acorn finial, which you'll see as a recurring theme in the tree house. And then to kind of expand the entry, I bought this contemporary lacquer table designed by Veer Grenny for the Lacquer Company. So as I love mixing modern pieces and antiques of all kinds. These Brighton Pavilion style bamboo armchairs were a garage sale find, and it was quite a garage sale. Gail Getty of the Getty family was moving back to Italy about 40 years ago, and my husband and I were out walking in the hills and we came upon her sale. She was lovely. We agreed on a price for the chairs. We walked home. There was no Venmo in those days, so we brought her a check and each of us carried a chair home. So that's kind of a fun way to remember our time living in the Hollywood Hills. Then this is our gathering area, and the sofa is vintage Baker, upholstered in an equally vintage Colfax and Fowler Gaffrage velvet. These tables are very interesting. When I was working for Suzanne Reinstein and Associates, we had a commission to kind of refresh a very prestigious private club in California. The original designer was Frances Elkins, who was a visionary designer of the early 20th century. And we were hired because first we knew who she was and they knew we would respect what she had done. So these tables are called muffin stand tables, and we reproduced some more of them for the job, which is quite an undertaking because there are a lot of different components, all done by independent craftspeople. And you'll see they have the acorn finial, I didn't add that, and then this beautiful curved leg, almost like, ends in almost an elephant's foot. So I decided after all that work, I needed two for myself, and I'm glad I have them. These chairs, my aunt gave me, and in the 90s when we had no furniture, they're originally from my uncle's shoe store in San Diego, and they're also Baker. They are Louis Kahn style faux toys, and I reupholstered them in red leather and painted them dirty white, and that has really stood the test of time. The leather has some patina on it, but I think that just adds to the charm of the chairs. They're also really comfortable. This ottoman I designed myself many years ago, and this is Colfax and Fowler Malabar fabric that I bought from a neighborhood garage sale, and I had just enough to make this ottoman. So that worked out really well. The window shades are a fabric by the esteemed antiquarian and designer Robert Kime in England, and they're called Queen Anne panel. They're inspired by a 17th century Indian quilt. He did a lot of antiquing and gathering in India and also in the Far East. And so I love this fabric because I don't know what came first, the fabric or the colors in the room. I think it was the fabric, so I based all the colors on this pattern. And then you'll see over the mantle is a new piece that I commissioned. It's a collage of dried flowers and leaves by the esteemed tastemaker Marion McAvoy. And I sent her a piece of the fabric and a photograph of it that she used as inspiration. So it was really nice to tie everything together with this new piece. It's from Suzanne's daughter's store, KRB in New York City. And also these are new hurricanes copied from Antique in the amber glass, are also from KRB. I am an 8th generation Californian. My husband, we met in California, but he's originally from Mississippi. So we always knew we would return, or he would return and I would follow to live in Oxford one day. He is a big Ole Miss football fan, and our family spent a lot of time down here through the years, and we all love it. So we decided during the pandemic that was a good time to move here. And we found this house. It's a new house. It was built in 2016. I had never lived in what I consider a new house. And the architectural style is basically a colonial style with some southern elements. The outside, they're very wide porches. And so it's a very livable house. And when we walked in, it was a football condo, and it had outlets for 4 televisions in the living room and a lot of things that we weren't really that interested in, but we weren't living in it part-time. This was our home, so it was very important to both of us that we create a home here. Now I'll take you over to the other side of the room, which is the dining library area. And when I first saw this house, this was the house that we bought, and it was in a great location. We liked the style, I had never lived in an open plan house before, so I really had to think through how to arrange everything, and no plans came with the house. So I was kind of winging it. And when the movers were here, you know, they asked, well, where do you want this? Where do you want that? And I had it in my head and roughly on paper, but I kind of did it on the fly, and I haven't moved very many things. I've added things, but the basic pieces were in place the day we moved in. So that worked out quite well. And we have a lot of books, and we gave away a lot of books when we moved. So we decided to build a bookcase here, and I've always loved dining rooms with books. I guess you would say the saying, books do furnish a room, I firmly believe in. So we built this wall-to-wall bookcase, and then I put the dining table and chairs in front of it, and it makes it a very convivial, warm space. We've had a lot of fun dinner parties here. This table is French, as are the chairs. 19th century, early 19th century in the Louis XV style. And I love this table because it has these beautiful feet, which are kind of jolly in a way. They make me feel happy when I look at them. And then the chairs, I bought these separately and put them together. These are not a set. And the chairs are very comfortable because the seat widens out at the ends. So you think, oh, they're going to be uncomfortable French chairs, but they're actually very comfortable to sit in. It also expands, and we can cram around 10 people around this table once you pull the leaves out. And I have 10 Victorian ballroom chairs hidden up in the attic, which work well to do that. My first confession about being a hostess is my daughter told me I should go to Chinaholics Anonymous because I have so many sets of dishes, and from my grandmother, both sides of my family, my mother's, my aunt's, my own. I gave away quite a few things when we moved, and the woman who helped me move in, she said, please tell me you don't have any more dishes. So before we redid our kitchen, I had sets of dishes crammed all over the house. So that was a big part of our kitchen renovation. So I love to choose my china. I love to mix and match. I have some modern plates that Christopher Spitzmiller gave me, his marble plates in pink, which come in, I use them at almost every party for something. And I do candles on the table. I wouldn't say I'm an over-the-top host, but I do love candles, and I love to have the silver, all the things that make entertaining special. Of course, cloth napkins. I have probably 200 napkins. I have my grandmother's damask napkins from probably the early 40s, so I love to use those, and I have new sets, and so I love to just think it all through. I do think that even if you're having 6 to 8 people, I love to have place cards for people because then you avoid that awkward pause where everyone kind of stands at the table and doesn't know where to go. So that's a tip I think that should come back, that people should use more often. Then we have our little library stairs, which come in handy. This chair is a library reading chair, and it's very comfortable. It has a little poof, needlepoint poof underneath it. This lamp and table were my father's, and I've always loved it because, again, I love the feet, and it comes in, it's really great light for reading, so I do spend a lot of time here, even just kind of contemplating all the books. When I talk to clients about decorating, and this is how I approach it, I don't call it traditional, I think it's classic. There classic rules that if you follow about placement and those sorts of things, if you have absorbed those classic rules, it makes your house very comfortable. People don't know why, but that's a big part of it. And I would say I tend more, if you look around here, you would say that's a maximalist, but my approach is really more minimal in that I don't have piles and piles of stuff at one time. I'm a big editor. So I love when I work with clients. I help them edit their collections, no matter what they may be. Many times people will have a lovely collection of, say, Peruvian pottery, but it's scattered all over their house. So, I try to bring it together, and collections make much more of an impact when they're together. Also, I think comfort is key. If you're not comfortable, it's just not a fun place to be. So I'm very a stickler for comfort in my design in terms of lighting, seating, proportion, and then collected. As you can tell, I've collected things for myself throughout. I have things in here from before I got married in this house. And if you buy, Suzanne, my boss, always said, if you buy one good thing a year, and it doesn't have to be expensive, it could be a small vase, it could be a wonderful chair, which might be more expensive, a beautiful wicker basket. If you buy one good thing a year, at the end of 10 years, you have 10 good things. And so as you add and collect that way, it brings a lot of your personality into your home. And it doesn't look like you just went to a furniture showroom and checked things off the box. So that's my approach to decorating. I also love color. I think that's probably growing up in a mixed Latin family in California, lots of color. And I'm what's called a tetrachromat. I have an extra cone in my brain that perceives shades and hues of color very distinctly. And I didn't know why I could pick pink. I love to pick out paint colors, which is it's hard to do, but that's one of my favorite things. So now I'm going to take you through this vestibule, which holds our bar area, which is a lot of fun with this little sink and all the accoutrements that you need to make a drink. And it really comes in handy. And then on the other side is our butler's pantry, and there's a pass-through. And I wanted to show you that I had when we redid the kitchen, I had very deep drawers made for all of my various china patterns. So some are also tucked into the island cupboards, but I did manage to collect most of it in one place. These are the Christopher Spitzmiller marble plates that I use all the time. They come in zillions of colors. You can also do a whole set of china. And so that kind of brings the modernity in. And then I have lots of different plates. These are old Wedgwood Chinese gate dessert plates. I have, what do I have in here? I have a set of bowls that are great for gumbo from, again, antique Wedgwood. I have, let's see, these are dinner plates from that same pattern. This is called charnwood. I bought these dishes about, 35 years ago, maybe 30, because these are from Emma Bridgewater in England, and I had picked out some plainer dishes, and our daughter, who is now a stylist and a florist, she said, Mom, she was 7. She said, Mom, those are so boring. I said, well, why don't you pick them out? So she picked these out, and we've loved them ever since. And you can see they pick up a lot of colors in our kitchen. So again, what came first, the plates or the kitchen colors? Now let me take you into the kitchen. Now we're in the kitchen, and the kitchen looks in some ways very similar to the kitchen that we purchased, but we put a lot of thought into storage, especially things like cookware, trays, more china in the island. So I have a collection of green majolica plates from England and France, and I decided to use these as a focal point of the kitchen design. So that drove, color of the cabinets and all that sort of thing. And I think they're fun and cheerful and give kind of some spirit to this area. I'm also a big fan of using real furniture in kitchens, particularly in open plan, so you get more of a room feel and it doesn't look so clinical. This antique trolley is great for extra overflow display space. You'll see some more dishes there. And on top I have a vintage ceramic lamp, a basket for mail, and this wonderful organizer for cards and invitations and that sort of thing. So that comes in very handy. These stools for the island are vintage pub stools that I ordered actually all the way from Newport Beach, California, and they're really comfortable, so everyone loves those. And this cashpo, a good friend of mine bought from an antique dealer in Memphis, and he said, I know you love basket weave, which is another one of my loves, so he snagged this for me. And I like it because it hides the faucet from a lot of angles. So again, it just kind of touches that you don't feel like you're in the middle of a clinical kitchen when you're in a big room. This settee has been with me for many years, and I had it slip covered here. Oh, Lulu, you're here. This is Lulu. She's a rescue cat, very sociable. Yeah, you like it here, don't you? So that is basically the kitchen. And it was, you know, like any remodel, it's horrible when you're going through it, but at the end you forget and you enjoy your beautiful new space. Much like the great room in the front, our kitchen spills over into our snug where we spend most of our time. I did create somewhat of an illusion of a vestibule, but they're basically one large room. Now here we are in the snug, and I'll start with a special piece. This secretary was my grandmother's. That's probably from about the 1940s. And I always wanted to paint it, but my mother had a fit. So I decided that instead, to kind of brighten it up, I would line it with this marbled English paper. So that does the trick, and it's fun to display different family things. I have a collection of royal coronation china. And this is a Regency inkwell that Suzanne gave me, and I put flowers in it. And here's my grandmother right here. This table is a Japanese coffee table from the 1950s that my father commissioned when he was stationed in Japan. So it's been with me my entire life. I think I learned to walk around it. And I love the raisin color of the lacquer. And it's reflected in the beautiful Tree of Life Claremont fabric that's on the Bridgewater club chairs here that we've had for many years. And I'm just so happy to have it here. This piece of pottery was my first purchase in Mississippi. It's from McCarty Pottery in Marigold, Mississippi. I didn't know about it, but it is very famous in the South. And this beautiful glaze kind of echoes the Mississippi River. There's always a mark of the Mississippi River in the pottery. So that's very special. And it just so happened to fit with the colors so beautifully, which is also a bonus. Then this chest of drawers I bought at auction in New Orleans. We used to buy a lot of antiques from New Orleans for our clients and for the shop. And this is obviously painted. It's either English or French. I bought it for myself for our breakfast room in LA because I always wanted a painted chest in a particular spot. And a very famous interior designer saw it in our office and wanted to buy it for herself, but I had to break it to her that it was mine. It did take some knocks during the move, but we've had it somewhat restored and we're very happy that it survived. Then on the other side, this garden table is inspired by the garden table that John Fowler did. John Fowler of Colfax and Fowler in London in about the late 40s, early 50s. and I love the scalloped apron. And so scallops have gone in and out of style for a long time. But I think as long as you don't overdo something, they're very classic. The antique pine mirror was my mother's. Also, these were hers. These are hand-colored engravings of snipe birds. I didn't know what they were until I read the back label, but I think they're very interesting and I really enjoy them. I've always loved interior design. My mother was a talented interior designer, as was my stepmother. And for my first career, I went to a different place. I had a long career in advertising at a major advertising agency in Los Angeles. And then I quit working and spent 7 years at home with my children, which was very important to me, and so that was wonderful. They didn't need me anymore, and I was looking for a new career. Suzanne Reinstein was a neighbor of mine, and she had helped me a little bit with our house, and we were friends. And I thought, well, I think I want to become an interior designer. So I talked to her about it, and she said, well, first, you know, can you come and run our shop, Hollyhock? So I started out in the shop, and I really learned interior designer from the best person I could have learned from by osmosis. I did take a few classes at the UCLA Extension course, which is wonderful. And then when we closed the shop, I started working in design full time and just have never looked back and loved it ever since. All right, enough about me. I want to tell you more about the house, in particular this room. As soon as we moved in, the afternoon sun in here is blinding. So I bought these chick shades that are Indian, and we had these for the first couple years all by themselves. And you can see that they filter the light, and you see the beautiful green outside. And then I added these soft bottom Romans in a Name Same shade fabric. And so they work really nicely together. And when it's cold, we just put everything down to keep the drafts out. So that's the story on these window shades. I also have a chick shade in our utility room, and I highly recommend them because they are visually very appealing, they filter the light, and they just really are an asset in just about any room. Okay, I think I've shown you about everything in this room, and I'd love to show you our powder room. Come on, Lulu, let's show everyone the powder room. Go on. Here we are in the powder room, and in a small space such as this, I love to use an all-over print. It adds a lot of charm, it's fun, you don't see it all the time so you don't get tired of it. So here I used Cypress Paisley from Howe in London for the wallpaper and the skirt sink and the shades. And then I also included in this room, I have a big collection of English engravings and silhouettes, and I add to them all the time. So that's where these are in this house. Also, this is a gentleman's shaving stand, which comes in handy in a tiny room like this, that there's really no cabinetry to keep all the things that come in handy in this room. So you have items at the ready. Now I'd love to take you upstairs to show you some of our rooms up there. On the stairs, I took the treehouse and leaf idea to a new level with this gorgeous wallpaper, which is trails of oak leaves from George Spencer Design. And fortunately, it did come in a greeny color. At the top of the stairs, I have this charming bookcase that actually someone in my neighborhood had thrown it away many years ago. So I brought it home and I used a lot of ebony stain, and it looks wonderful. This is what's called a waterfall, the way the shelves are designed here. So our first room at the top of the stairs is our guest bedroom, and let me take you inside. And this room really reflects, I think, the most treehouse effect of all of the rooms, as you have the windows on the two sides and the beautiful trees outside. I made the window shades and the window seat from repurposed show house curtains that I brought with me, which I think they work really well in here. And I just want to talk about these tables. You know, this isn't a huge room, so these are custom tables from Fabulous Things in Richmond, Virginia. And I love the size of them, and they're very practical with this big drawer and also the shelf. So you can have a lot of storage there. And this armoire was from one of our neighbors in Los Angeles who was downsizing. And it was another one of those things where I told the movers, put it here, and it's been here ever since. So that has worked out really well. And the last thing I'll point out in this room is this chair. This was in our living room in Los Angeles, and I slip covered it in this charming Pierre Frey fabric that I thought would work well with the greens. It has some burgundy in it. It's just has a lot of movement and makes this stolid old chair a little bit more lively. So I think that works well. Now we're coming into my favorite room in the house, our primary bedroom. And this is why we needed a very large room with very tall ceilings in the house that we purchased here. Suzanne gave me this bed when I helped her write her first book. It's from the 1980s. It's Colfax and Fowler from London. The fabric is fuchsia chintz, and I want to show you a few details here. The ruche top of the bed with the rosette is very special, and it's actually kind of a southern bed, if any of you are familiar with southern decorating over the years. And another touch is the trim fabric has these pinked edges that's done with a pinking machine. And I think it's something that would be fun to bring back. We won't call it a scallop, we'll call it a pinked edge. This table was my father's, and the chair, which is a great dressing table. And this bench was actually one of my mother's neighbors that had recovered. This chair we've had for years. I reupholstered it. And this pillow is a piece of vintage Chelsea textiles that I bought on eBay many years ago. And my mother had it, and then I made it into a new pillow. This cute side table is actually from a junk shop, and we bought it and had copied it for tables made for the shop. And so it comes in very handy here. This sculpture, botanical sculpture, is by a woman named Carmen Almond. It's a French carnation. I happen to be a carnation lover, and it has to be, I think it's just about my favorite possession. And she is now, I believe, living part-time in New Orleans, where she has a gallery of her work, and her work is also featured at the Chinese Porcelain Gallery. I believe it's called in New York City. I love this room because we can enjoy just about everything that we've collected over the years. That you'll also see elements throughout our house, but obviously the bed is very special. And I should tell you that it has to come, we took it all apart and out our second story balcony to get it out of the room in Los Angeles and reassembled it here. So I think when you put a lot of effort into something, you should enjoy it. And I love the colors. And it just, you know, with the windows and the doors here, it's just a wonderful, comfortable place to be any time of day. And I must admit, when we first moved to this house, my husband and I thought we'd made some sort of terrible mistake given the daunting work that we had to do. But now we love this house, and I think home to me is a place that makes you happy every time you come home. Welcome to our primary bathroom. This room was the darkest, most depressing room in the entire house. I think the vision here, I could see elements, but I'm not quite sure what was done, why they did it, etc. But I won't dwell on that. It was, originally we didn't add any square footage. It was this huge room, kind of like a dance hall. And I wanted to bring again the green inside. And I've always loved this Sparrow and Ball wallpaper called A Park. So I thought this was the perfect place to use it. And once it went up, I think everyone was very happy with it. Then I have this little chair. I love a little bit of upholstery in a bathroom. This was in our daughter's bathroom in Los Angeles, and I had it reupholstered in a fabric called Bees by Sybil Colfax, which I think really complements the wallpaper. And again, it's very handy to get dressed, put your pajamas down, all that sort of thing. And then this was, we had no linen storage, or really storage of much of any kind in this house. So we used part of the space for a linen cupboard. I was willing to sacrifice some on the size of the bathtub to get this cupboard made in here. And I used the French way of the check curtains behind and the chicken wire on top, which I think really adds a fun decorative element to this room. Welcome to my husband's favorite room in the house, the front porch. And as you can see, they're extremely wide. We face north, so most of the time you're in the shade. And it's just a wonderful, welcoming place to be, to sit outside with a drink at the end of the day or your coffee in the morning. And he knows all the neighbors that walk their dogs up and down the street. And these rockers were one of our first purchases. We have 4 on this porch and 2 on the upstairs porch, which is also nice in the evening. We painted the ceiling of the porches the traditional southern color, which is haint blue, that is supposed to scare away flies and mosquitoes, as well as haints, which, if you're not familiar, those are a type of ghost. So we seem to be very lucky so far. Home to me is a place that you love to come to at the end of the day, that welcomes you when you wake up in the morning and just makes you happy all the time. Homeworthy, it's been wonderful having you here in our home. I've enjoyed every minute, and until next time, goodbye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.